entombed for 3,000 years, wrapped growing in me. I have lived an eternity suspended in darkness. Release me, release me.
Release me, release me. I'll be good, I promise. Release me. I'm just a horrible, cursed being that's going to wreak havoc in your life.
Oh, that's it.
Never meaning no harm. Just a good old mummy.
When it says that, it reminds me of like Santa Claus on the.
Your mic is giving a reverberation.
When he says that, it reminds me of Santa Claus on the. Was it the Nightmare Before Christmas? Release me now, or you will surely face the consequences.
Yeah, he's like, you don't have a clue.
Yeah, you're joking. You're joking. I can't believe my ears.
He says my eyes. I thought he said my eyes. Is
I
that
don't
what
know.
he says?
I guess I don't know.
Something like that.
Actually, I think you said, I can't believe my ears. You aren't
maybe.
comprehending the position that you're in.
No.
I'm pretty sure he does.
Look it up. Don't play it on here, but like go in the other room and play it.
I'll play it. I haven't.
Don't play it in here though, because we'll get, it's copyrighted.
No, Tony's got headphones, like a little earbud in. I'm pretty sure it says, I can't believe my ears. You aren't comprehending the position that you're in.
Who knows? With the Mandela effect, it's liable to have changed completely. So we started a little bit earlier because we got things to do tonight, and it's already 8:00. So I wanted to get started and get this going. We have a new song we're going to be premiering on Friday. So that's going to be interesting because the music that we did before, we did 11 songs, right? 11? Was it 11?
I believe so.
So that's going to be like, that was like our first
You're
album.
wrong. It's eyes.
Huh?
He's wrong.
It was eyes,
Oh,
right?
crap.
I told you, you're wrong. You're
Well,
always
then it's
wrong.
Mandela effect. I'm not wrong. The whole universe is wrong.
You're always wrong.
You're all wrong and living in the wrong universe.
Maybe you're in the wrong universe.
No.
So Anthony's wrong as always, and I'm right. So
It's not.
Let's
I'm not
move,
wrong.
Let's move on, though.
I'm not wrong.
It doesn't
It's
matter
Mandela
that you're
effect.
wrong and I'm right.
It's
let's
Mandela
let's
effect.
quit
I'm not
focusing
wrong.
on the fact that you're wrong and I'm right.
It's not my fault.
Let's not.
CERN
focus
did
on
this, not me.
I mean, it's not a big deal that you're wrong and I'm right.
CERN is a big deal, sir.
Well, it does happen a lot that you were
It's
wrong.
changing
and I'm
universes and
right.
making
I
me
don't think
wrong
CERN
about
has anything
minute
to do with
things.
it. I think you're wrong and I'm right. I think that's what happens.
No,
a lot.
I'm pretty sure that this is the fault of CERN.
Pretty sure that I'm always right.
Pretty
you're
sure
wrong.
they're opening up tiny black holes.
Well, let's ask Tony. Tony, how many times am I right compared to him being right?
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm listening to the Boogie song.
Wow. So you're not even going to answer the question. How many times am I right compared to him being right?
He's still playing the song.
When are you right?
I was going to say, when is he right? When are you right?
Like all the time.
Well, you lightning finished out the way over here. Something bad's going to happen over here, guys. This guy's over here just lying. You need to quit lying, bro. Seriously. Somebody says, Voltron says, where can I get the music that is played? It's called Paranormal Sound Table. Hold on, man. You're singing. It sounds like Scorp.
Hey, can we get one of the mods to post a link to the Paranormal Sound Table channel on YouTube in the chat for Voltron and for anyone else who wants to check it out?
Yeah, and not just for Paranormal Sound Table, we play it on the show, but it's not, play it, go to YouTube and check it out. It's on there. And you can download it, I think, on Apple and some other. Speaking of which, like, there's so many people who listen to the podcast and they don't watch the YouTube. They're missing out, dude, because they're always like, oh, I wish I could get more. Well, we're doing more, but they're like, yeah, it seems like a lot of work, It's like, you live in a microwave, don't you? Like, everything it has to be instant for you. A cup of noodles takes too long. You shouldn't eat that anyway. Those are terrible for you. Very bad for you. Destroy your stomach. Heidi, yes. And the research and things that we've done have actually opened up my eyes to a lot of this stuff too, because like I said before on the show, if you've asked me 5 years ago, they're like, do you believe in werewolves? I would have been like, I don't know if what I saw was a werewolf. I don't know if it's a Dogman. That's a silly name, you know. Vampires were kind of like, it's kind of like gargoyles. Like somebody would say, I saw this thing. And then it was up to us to kind of identify what it was. And now the flying humanoids kind of blend in with the whole vampire thing because we don't know what's what.
Mhm.
It's almost impossible to really know. Last night was weird. Like it was weird. So we were off from the show last night. And my eyes are y'all's eyes burning in here. Like my eyes are burning in here, dude.
I need to get some like Visine or something.
I don't know if we need to get an air filter and a purifier
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something in here.
And we could change the AC filter too.
Does it need to be changed?
Probably.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, we end up last night we got a story about from somebody at the gym who works there. I didn't ask if we could say his name. Me and Tony were there talking to him.
Mm-hmm.
And then the manager came up and was like listening to the guy's story. But yeah, he's a young guy, but he spoke very well. And I was like he was very like said what he had to say.
Yeah.
Like he didn't beat around the
He's a
bush.
22-year-old
guy, African American guy, and he was, you know, he was a kid. They had something that chased them through their house. Or they were running through the house.
No, I think
Well, I don't want to tell the whole story because
Yeah.
we're gonna get with them about it.
Yeah, we'll wait.
They ran into something.
They ran into some basically.
It was definitely like a demon.
It's a pretty good one.
Yeah. Well, not good for him, but it was, you know, I mean, we get these stories, and you always got to remember, folks, this is the most important thing, that these are people's encounters. This is you're playing with here. You know, if you mess around, and some of these people out there do that, they absolutely don't really care if these people went through this and they're suffering. They don't care. And so it's like you got to take into consideration, you know, like sometimes people it's very traumatic. It's not I don't know. But this particular encounter that I'm talking about tonight, where do I start? How do we even? Well, we're going to go over some things. Let's put it that way. And what did you call the show? I don't even know what you named it.
Goatman Terror.
Goatman Terror. Okay. Because I was going to say origins because we were going to go over the origin of it. I guess we'll do that on a different episode. But this one there's two of them that we got as of recently. One was on a ranch, and it happened here in Texas. And then another one was up in near the Baltimore, Maryland area. Interesting that this happened in Baltimore, and well, not Baltimore, but in a suburb of Baltimore. Let me get my phone here. Yeah, my eyes are just burning like they just started.
I mean, my eyes feel dry.
Thank you for that donation, Toey. We appreciate that big time.
You always come through.
Can't tell you how much we appreciate it right now, especially. But I gotta look this up real quick. Oh, I just dismissed it. Way to go. Way to go, Wolf. Stupid. I just dismissed it. Got my notes right there. Okay, so this was a weird one. Like, okay, so these people, they're actually from Maryland. They live in Maryland. We're waiting for people to fill up the chat real quick. You guys can put the camera on you. I got to do something real quick.
Okay.
Let's see what you guys want to talk about today.
Dormouse, what are you talking about? It says game over, man. They lost a drop ship. That's game over.
Game over,
Are you sure? Are you sure you're in the right place, man? You're not lost.
Who?
Dropship.
No, that's his name. Dropship.
No, Dormouse.
Did y'all ever watch Demon House?
Was that a show or a movie?
I don't know. Who's in it, Kid Flash?
Mhm. Oh, you know what? That movie. I don't know if him and Nelly finished it, but Astro Boy was pretty good.
Oh yeah, I liked it.
Like I wasn't expecting much of it, but that was a good movie.
I can't believe you never heard of it.
I mean, I've heard of I knew it was like a Japanese comic, but I didn't know that they made a movie out of it. It was actually kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
definitely
it was
a better
pretty sad.
Pinocchio story, I would say.
Yeah, I never liked Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Pinocchio just lame. I never liked Pinocchio. I never liked Beauty and the Beast. I never liked Snow White. Never liked the Smurfs.
We just talked about that on
Yeah.
What episode was that? Monday?
Mm-hmm.
Was it?
Oh, it was. I thought
Yeah.
it was. Was it Monday or Sunday?
It was Monday.
Mm.
It was Monday because it was after we all three were talking about it. You and me were on the show on Sunday, Tony. Anthony wasn't here,
Yeah.
so it was Monday. It was Monday after.
Oh
the
yeah,
call.
and then we went into the holiday sins.
Oh, so okay. So Demon House is a Zach Baggins documentary. Well, probably won't be watching that. Then.
Yeah, cool. Let's go check that out. Come on, bro. Come at me, bro. I'm gonna fight you, demon. Get out here, man.
That dude looks like I don't know.
We're not gonna say nothing. Let's bite our tongues, please. Let's not even go there. So next thing you know, somebody will type a big old letter to him saying that we started a war with them or something. Just leave it alone, dude, please. I'm waiting on a text back.
Oh.
Okay. All right, cool. So I don't know how much you guys know about the Goatman. This was interesting when this person messaged me about this, and it was not her. It was their daughter, and it wasn't. She has two daughters and a son, but it was the daughter that actually reached out to me. And she was not the main recipient of the, what would you call it? The terror, the assaults. This was a nightmare what they went through, and this is going to be really intense. It's going to be pretty deep. So we got to get everybody in here. When we get about 300, we'll start. And this one was we were discussing it earlier, all of us. And so it was pretty intense. A lot of stuff happened. And this is going to be interesting because they kind of looked to me to like help them. And I gave them the help that I could. And I gave them some ways that they could deal with it. But there is a problem. And we'll get into that. The problem that I found with this whole situation. Gosh, and it's still going on. It's still going on. So they first reached out to me back in August of last year. That's right. The first email came through from these people in August, and it was a female, and she said, "Hey, I really like your show, and I watch your show regularly." And she said, "But her dad had just passed." When she first found the show, and I guess it was right as, we were starting to get, hit our stride after the first year.
Mm-hmm.
And she said she'd been watching the show off and on. She's a lead, what is it? A head nurse, lead nurse, whatever, at a major hospital there in Baltimore, or she was, I guess. And, but she was older. She was the oldest of three. And then they had a brother who passed away. And I think that there was a lot of trauma that helped make this thing happen. And this is going to sound really weird when we start talking about it. You'll see what I'm talking about. Now, here's what's interesting. The email from them came in like August. And I tracked the other email from another guy who had sent me a Goatman story. I thought that his was like way after theirs, but it wasn't. The first time that he sent me an email was in July, but it wasn't, and it wasn't. It's nothing personal. I'm not gonna say his name right now until he decides what he wants to be called or whatever. But he just says, "Need to talk to you."
Mm-hmm.
So, folks, let me give you this. This is a teachable here. Don't send me an email that just says, "Hey, man, I need to talk to you," because it's probably not going to happen. You got to give me what you need to talk about, unless we're like close friends or something on Facebook, or like we've spoken before and there's a thread there, you can jump on there and say, "Hey, I got this." And so this person wasn't a friend of mine on Facebook. I didn't know him. So then he messaged me through Instagram, and I accepted the Instagram message or whatever, but then he got off of Instagram. And it was really weird. This guy that we're talking about here, and I'm not going to get into a big old long explanation. We'll just call him Jay for now until we, what he wants to do. But he had like a horrible thing going on out in West Texas. And it seemed like, to me, what it sounded like was like Dogman creature and a Goatman creature were tag teaming this family. Or, it could have been we've heard of this before, like these Dogman with horns, but they weren't just like some little horns on its head. It had a big rack of horns, not like antlers, but like a goat or something, not like a ram either. And so this thing would show up, and it was just really weird. So I was going back and I was looking at that story, and out of that Goatman file, dude, we had a bunch of stuff, but some of it we had done on another show with this guy that just had no motivation to do anything. And we gave away a lot of our material on there. So, but there is a ton more. And so somebody actually watched one of those episodes we did with that other dude on his channel, and I'm not going to get into who he is or what he is. It's just pointless. But unmotivated, believe me, it just couldn't get him to do anything. He just wasn't interested. He was too into, I don't know how to say it nicely, just into a bunch of drama with people. And I was just like, I'm not, but he wants you to do it. Like, I'm like, no, man, I'm not doing this. So we cut ties, went our separate ways. He's in that other bunch of crap, people that don't want to act right.
And by the way, thank you, Susie. She gave us a $50 super chat.
Yes, thank you for that donation, and thank you to everybody who's donated. We greatly appreciate that.
Adam, Rudy, you guys are awesome.
So we had this issue, and I don't know what he thinks, if he's supposed to keep that material or not, but there's a bunch of stuff that came out of that because somebody had tried to reach out to this person. And then they got in touch with me, and I listened to them, and I said, "Hey, if you have a story, tell me." And so this other person gave me a story. So I started getting more and more people's encounters about the Goatman, and it kind of filled back up. So I just put it back into the file. And then I guess from back in the gap, Tony or somebody had made another file that was a secondary file. And on that file, it just says goats.
Yeah, that was a good file. I remember that.
You did it.
I did it because it was supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to be just Goatman. It was supposed to be goat-like things, or like because I remember hearing some like shadow or some animal stuff. It was supposed to be like a big animal file. Okay. But it started with goats because I had one specific story in mind.
So we had a file about a petting zoo.
Kinda, but it was like spooky animals basically.
Well, okay.
But the only one I had was goat, or like so that's why I just named it goat.
Should have put Miss Kitty in that file.
Well, I asked you one day, like, or maybe I was dreaming. I don't know. I've fallen asleep at my computer. I've been doing stuff, and sitting there talking to people, and after you get tired and. I had my old study, and I had the TV up there, and I was doing some research, and next thing I wake up and I'm like, did I fall asleep? So I was working pretty hard at that time, and the business was just kicking the heck out of my butt. And So anyways, I just saw goats on there and I thought this is interesting. And so we went in and I found like 2 or 3 things. I had to merge them. So that file's gone, but I put them together the way they're supposed to be. And so, yeah, here we are. So I'm sitting there going like goats, just on their own, not really that scary. But if you mix them with a human, then they become terrifying. And then you're sitting there going like, oh my gosh, what is this?
There's another file, just man's.
This men's?
Just
men's?
men's.
Yeah, I don't want to see that one. I'm good. You're like, we have goats and we have men's. We don't have goat men's. We have goat men.
Goatman.
Goatman. Hey, blondes.
You got some
What's going on, you
Goatman.
guys? So, what happened?
Spam.
Good. Work. You know. So what ended up happening with this? It's 300 now. We'll get started here. Here's what's crazy about this whole thing, and I've said a little bit already. I had not looked at the map, and I have not really looked to see like the whole, like, you know, where this thing originally. Like, I think I did on that other guy's show. Like I talked about it for like a couple of hours or something. I don't remember. We put a bunch of stories out there that were given to us, encounters. Mostly people that had seen this thing. They heard us on Dogman and they were just like, hey, you know, let's, you know, can you tell my story? And I was like, this guy's not gonna let me tell anything but Dogman, but you can give it to me. And maybe if I start my own show or something, then I had a bunch of them ready to go and I'm using them. But it's filled back up quite a bit. I mean, there's over a dozen encounters in there, and some of them are kind of short, quick little things, but some of them aren't. And so we've covered the Goatman before. Now, the other night I was doing my job at the hotel and I was having to work security there because whenever this big company comes into town, we have to have somebody there. So last week I just went ahead and worked it. Anthony had a lot of work to do at the house, you know, like on the computer and stuff. And he was doing editing for a video that we ended up scrapping because we didn't think it would work. But he was doing some work. So I said, I'll go do the shift. And then when I was there, the bartender came up. So one thing leads to another. We start talking and she tells me, and this is live. It was on there. It says tonight's encounter or something like that. That's what because I was going to go on to TikTok, which ended up not happening. And she starts talking about all the crime and stuff in that area. The next thing you know, we're talking about the Devil's Backbone. And she knew Burt Wall and his widow, whatever. And he did work on the Devil's Backbone. In one of his books, he describes a monster that's killing livestock and people at the turn of the century, you know, not this century, last century. And then they track it down to a cave and it turns out to be a goat. Well, he said it was a goat because I don't think he felt comfortable saying it was a goat man.
Yeah.
Because his books were predominantly about the ghosts there. He didn't get into a lot of Dogman, Bigfoot, stuff like that. Although a lot of people who knew him have said, hey, he knew about those things. He just didn't know what to call them or how to classify them. So in the book, he calls it a goat. And then he calls something else a wolf. And you're going like, how does the wolf do this? How does the goat do that?
Yeah,
you know,
it
it's like,
makes sense.
These are not goats and wolves. These are Dogman or Wolfman and Goatman. That's what they are. I mean, and there's tons of Bigfoot reports out there, especially when on the east. If you go west, it's further down, you get more Dogman. And down near Wimberley and that whole corridor right there, that's Dogman territory. People have said that I've heard people say they've seen Bigfoot and they've had Bigfoot encounters near there in Green and all that. But I've fielded them down Riverfront Road, but not really in the Wimberleys. And I tell you why, because I think it's Dogman. The one Bigfoot report I fielded near Green, the lady was sitting there. I was looking right at her. I mean, it was a gristmill, and she was telling us, and it was just like, yeah, I saw it had a snout. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, first it's like came out of the water, and I'm thinking it was like an alligator. But then we get these reports out near Lago that come in, and they're like, well, there's this Dogman that has webbed hands, and you're like, what the freaking heck is that?
Yeah,
So you don't really know what's going on. But I will say this right now before we even get started on the show. I think that there's something, I'm telling you, this is the inner earth. And then people go, well, that's weird. I don't know. You know what? There's a lot of people who are coming out and saying it now. And some of them are former military, you know, and they're saying what they know. Deep underground military bases. And you're sitting there going like, what are they producing? What's coming out of these bases? And not just that, like what is, you know, I mean, I could spit out stuff all night long. We could sit here. I promise you, we could do a marathon right now. And if you give me $1,000, I'll do it. I'll stay here till 6 a.m. And I will totally neglect my other job. And then tomorrow I'll be like, dang, what do I do? Got all these clients pissed off. But you know, that's how drunks are, though. You're like, I'll worry about it tomorrow. You wake up the next day. I'm still alive. Oh, man, and I'm hungover. I got to go to work.
I wasn't planning on
pants.
Wasn't planning on waking up.
Yeah. What a bummer. So yeah, so I'm sitting there going like, you know, there's so much information that I'd like to disseminate, but it's just, you can't, it just takes too long. And I got a life, I got things I got to do. Although this has become a very big part of my life, you know, and it's because it's so interesting, because once you get to one spot, then you're like, I want to know what's on the next horizon and the next horizon. And I want to know. You just keep going. And then you get so far out there, you're just like, where am I at? You know? And getting and staying organized is a goal of ours for this. We've been trying to get organized. We all did pretty good though. We got a little more organized.
You made some progress.
Right? And that's all we can do. Baby steps, all we can do.
Mm-hmm. Small wins.
Stack them wins, man. Yes, they do. Suzette says that they live. Yeah, they do. They live underground, and people don't grasp that. They don't grasp the reality that we're living in is not the one that they've been taught. And so here, this story came from. Now, I'm not going to say her name. I agreed not to. She works at a medical facility now, whatever. I don't think she's working at the same place, but she's working, I think, in the suburbs now. But her family is Iranian, Persian. They're Persian. So if you ever hear somebody talk about Persia, that's Iran, right? So they speak Farsi. She's been here since she was a 6-year-old child, you know. And so she's not a little kid anymore, but she's definitely still in touch with her roots and whatever. And her father, who passed away a few years ago, it's a really sad thing. Now you're going to listen to what I got to tell you. She's the one that reached out to me, and it's because of her boyfriend at the time. They're now married. Thank goodness. Shout out to Kurt. Good guy. Thank you for getting her involved in the show. He is actually really good friends. They were friends beforehand with her sister's now husband, right? So here's the rub, though, right? One of them, the husband, he is a Muslim. Kirk is a Muslim. He was converted when he was in jail. And I've got permission to say that. He makes no bones about it. That's his belief. It's what he wants to believe. But his wife says, hey, you know, we have a story to tell you. And this was, like I said, was back in August. They moved into a house a couple of years ago, or about 3 years ago. And they started having some kind of weird stuff happen. So they had one of the clerics from the mosque go and do a cleanse. Now, Kirk's friend, who's married to the younger sister, he's not Muslim. He's Christian. So 2 things happened. Their dad got really, really upset with the older daughter at first until he realized that guy was a Muslim. He begrudgingly accepted. He wanted her to marry a Persian, and she said, no, I'm going to marry this guy, but he's Muslim. They met at the mosque. So he begrudgingly gave her his blessing, but and you got to listen to what I'm going to tell you. Kirk's brother ended up with Farah. All right. Or I'm sorry, Azita. Azita is the younger sister, Azita. They got married. The mother's name is Farah. Now, she was okay with that Dad was not. Dad was very upset because this guy is not Islamic, and this guy even told him at dinner one time that Islam is false. So that led to some stuff. Thing is, Bobby, that's the guy, whatever, he is not one to, he's a very non-giver of crap. So her dad, who's not a huge guy, got like he was going to do something, whatever, and Bobby threw him in the pool. That turned into, this was back in the day, right, when they got married, but they're older now and everything's. So for 8 years, he didn't talk to them. The dad did not speak to them. Bobby tried to reach out a couple times and apologize. It didn't work. And so they didn't talk. They didn't have any whatever interaction. The older sister had something happen at their house, so they had the clerics come and supposedly do a cleanse. The mother says, "Hey, you know, we're moving into this other house. You know, can you have them come and help us? We've had some kind of weird things happen, a little bit of weird stuff, right?" And it didn't go so well. It did not go so well. So Farah, who is the daughter, Azita, who is the daughter, has now converted to Christianity, along with her now husband. And I'm trying to keep the names correct, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so Farah has decided that it was time to make amends. So unbelievably, okay, on a fishing trip, this is crazy. Okay, they go on a fishing trip, and the dad collapses. He collapses, and they're out too far. They can't get anybody there. He had some heart problems. 2 weeks before, he had told his daughter, he called her and says, "Look, I'm not in good health." So she came over and he talked to Azita and said, "Look, I may not be long for this world. You know, that they're saying that my heart isn't good. It's weak, blah, blah, blah. I want to see my grandchildren." He had not laid eyes on his grandchildren since they were born. Wow. So 8 years, and there were 2 kids now. One of them, now there's 3, but he's passed away. So he got to meet the grandchildren, right? And he got to play with them for about, I think he said it was like 6 months or whatever. But 2 weeks before, he called her and says, "Hey, I want you to bring Bobby over." He was working. So after work, he shows up, and he got up, he gave him a hug, and there were these tears and everything. Sadly, there wasn't a very long reconciliation. 2 weeks later, they were fishing, and he started having chest pains, and they all, came over to see what was going on. They had rented this cabin. I believe they said it was like a Labor Day weekend or something, 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember what. It was 2021 or 2020, something like that. Anyways, the dates aren't really important, but let's not get lost in the minutia. But what happened is he collapsed, and then when Bobby was standing over, he began to pray, and he starts to scream like he's like, I can't see. Bobby's very devout in his faith, like very devout, and he got down and he prayed, and so him and Azita tried to get him to accept Christ before he passed. So when they started to pray, his heart was stopping and starting.
Mm-hmm.
Like there would be no pulse, and he would come back. And he was freaking out. Like he was freaking out. I think this is very important to say. And then they said the prayer with him, and he repeated it with them. And they were like, "Do you accept Christ?" And he says, "Yes, yes, yes." And so he started to yell, "Jesus, help me, save me." Because something, when he was dying and coming back, and they were doing chest compression, all this stuff, with CPR, it's very important to know. I learned it a long time ago, but it's something that everybody should know. Because if you push on someone's chest, I'm not telling you how to do it or what to do it. Go do it. Go learn about it. Don't take my word. But it keeps the blood pushing into the brain. That's the point.
To pump the heart.
To pump the heart, yes. And so that's what it does, just so you know. And he accepted Christ, and then he stopped, and he said, "It is done." Like he said this. This man said this. This is what they told me. And then he said, I'm good. It's done. He said, he grabbed her hand, said, thank you. And then he said, Jesus. And he said, the last word he said was Jesus. He died right after that. So that was very powerful. And you guys already know, we've already, you know the story or whatever, but this was crazy. Like it was a crazy story. And so that really angered the people that they were at the mosque with, because after that happened, she got her mother Farah to go to church with him. And so after she started going to the Christian church, she still has not, as far as I know, accepted Christ. She's just gone to church a few times with them, but she stopped going to mosque. And that became an issue. So the cleric came to her house. Now, her family used to be big donors to the mosque too. And the cleric came over and he had this guy with him. And some of the things that this guy was saying, now this is where it comes in handy to know this stuff. Because somebody asked me one day, they're like, what does it benefit you to know about Hinduism, Buddhism? And he was very, very pissy about it. He says,
condescending.
No, he was condescending isn't the word. He was straight up, he was antagonistic. He's from that other whatever. But he started some crap saying, what does it benefit you to learn about all these other heathen religions? I can talk it in his voice too. Look, what's it benefit you to learn about all that other Islam and the Hindus and the Buddhism? What is that? What and he got two teeth over there. And he's playing his banjo. I'm going to sing a little song about these dummies that think they know.
Books ain't never done nothing for nobody.
And then he starts singing his song. He's like, this little song I'm going to sing about how pious I am. And then what I'm going to do to you keep on, let me tune my banjo here. Ass whooping! Ass whooping! Gonna happen to you! That's how his song went. He sent it to me. I said, dude, that's going to be number one. That's going to be the number one hit. All the kids are going to run around singing ass whooping. And then they're all going to know that it was about me because I'm the one going to get it because of my researching. It was really touchy. That touch and go for a minute. I thought he was going to keep playing until I hung up. But anyway, I'm joking, folks. That did not happen that way. He didn't play. Probably does have a banjo. Like he probably does. He's probably watching right now. Like, they're those undercover fans. I hate this guy, but I hate this dude, but I can't stop watching. Let me write down all the bad things about this guy. His hair is a little bit. He's got the. He's the face and the ears that there's some stuff going on. I just don't. He's got to be a demon. He's got to. Someday he's gonna sprout horns out of his ears. I can see it happening. So what ended up happening though with this family? He comes over. This cleric comes over and he has this guy with him. I don't know what this guy's role is or whatever, but he was supposed to go to Farah's house and help her cleanse it of the jinn who were plaguing the house. And of course, he tells her, sister, the reason the jinn are here because you're not coming to mosque. If you give more money, the jinn would go. They will definitely go. Yeah. Gold will make them leave, but only if you give to me the gold. Then the jinn go away. Yeah. Big time. Like, brother, brother, give the money. No more gin. No more drinking gin. No more cotton gin. No more evil gin. None of them. All of them gone. Gone.
No more gin and juice.
No more of your gin and juice. Smoking the Indo. No. Sipping on the gin and juice. No more. But no, what happened was, and I don't know the guy, but he sounded like a real arse, But it just seemed like, he was very antagonistic to her. And he kept telling her, and this is what Azita and her sister basically had told me. They reiterated each other's story. One of them, I talked to one of them, then I talked to the other one. Didn't talk to the guys, just heard secondhand from what they were telling me. But I did get to speak with them. And the one sister who doesn't want to be named, I'm not gonna say her name, but anyway, she was very forthcoming. She was like, give me a lot of information. She says, when we were children, she's like, we had something that harassed us in our beds when we were children. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, when we were living in Iran, and she goes, and Azita was really young. She's like, I'm 3 years older than her. Well, 2.5, whatever. But she's like, she was very, it was attacking her. It was like it was attached to her. And then when we came over here, she said sometimes it would look like I would see a shadow of a little demon. Like it looked, and I said, what does it look like? She's like, well, she said it was very much like it had like horns, little horns that kind of came out to the sides. And it was like a little short, little small thing. And she said we'd sleep outside at my grandmother's house. And it was kind of mountainous area where they were at, So she said it would get cold at night. So we would fall asleep out there. And she goes, I'd wake up cold. And my grandma would be like, y'all need to come inside, whatever. And she said that it would get, to the point where her body would feel all stiff. So one time she went to sleep, she woke up, she thought that her body was that way because of the cold. And then she realized it's not. She's like, she came to and was like, it's summertime, It's warm out here and I am freezing cold. And this is not because we're up high. This is something else. And she said, now people don't understand the terrain of Iraq is not all, it's not like not Iran. Iran is not Iraq. It is not Iraq. It's two different climates, dude. And I'm telling you, like in certain areas, if you go up into certain areas of Iran, it's not a big giant desert like Iraq. Iraq is like or Iraq, as they say. It's very desert. Iran is part desert, but then the rest of it's green, it's mountain, it's got a whole different terrain. So that's something that people don't realize, And, people have asked me questions before, about history and things like that. And they're like, well, how did this people from Persia that just lived in a big, vast desert take over all these other places? They didn't live in a big, vast desert. It was just that one, and the boundaries were created by people who had no business making boundaries. The Ottomans in particular and the British, they created these demarcation lines, which don't really have any bearing. That's not the Persian Empire. That's just what they gave Iran and said, this is what you have now. And Iraq is over here, But so anyways, there was something that followed them. Now you got to remember too, Persia is the first that we know of, the first monotheistic religion on earth. Do you know what it is? Zoroastrianism. Inga Manu. And Ahura Mazda. Mazda was the good guy, and Inga Manu was the bad guy. Was the devil and basically God. But what ended up happening, that's their version of it, right? The three wise men, they were Zoroastrians. They followed the star to find Jesus. So a lot of people don't know these things, and so I'm just throwing it out there so you can add to your repertoire of things, And Cowboy says, love the shirt choice. And yeah, thank you so much, man. Pray for Texas, dude. We're always under assault over here. So these people who have this, stuff going on in their house, they had just moved into this house. They found something down the stairs in the basement area, I guess. They didn't say basement, but I think that's what they were referring to. They said down the stairs, whatever. So there was something when they first moved in and they found it. It was a bunch of occult stuff. Now, the word occult just means like it's like hidden, whatever. But I mean, when we use it in a certain way, you know what I'm talking about. Like it's forbidden things. And so for these people who are strict Muslims, this was an absolute no-no because you were not supposed to mess with this stuff at all. And so this guy that was coming over and telling them, he knew quite a bit about the hadiths and he was talking about the esotericism and stuff. The guy that was with the cleric. Mm-hmm. And some Muslims do not read those because they don't believe that you should be even learning about it. In particular in Iran, there's a lot of Shiite, and they're very strict. They don't believe in any, you could look wrong and they're like, you're a witch.
Jeez.
Why are you looking at that black cat? You've been looking at it for too long. I own it. Well, why do you own a black cat? Why, brother? Why? You want to fly? We'll teach you how to fly. I'm being serious. They can be very hypercritical and they're very cruel. Not all of them. I'm not saying everybody, but I'm saying certain particular secular sects of Islam in that region, and they're very aggressive with it. One of my theories about that is just because during the Islamic invasions, you had to prove your loyalty to Islam. Now, if you were already Arabic, because it was Arabs that were invading you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when they moved into Turkey and into Persia, which is Turkey at that time was the Ottomans, those particular countries or peoples, whatever, they had to become more how do you say it, more Muslim than the Arabs to kind of prove their loyalty. They became more fervent and more.
They had to compensate for not being Arab.
Yeah, you got. It's like that's a human thing.
Yeah,
you're like it's just
It's like you're
it's
not
the
one
way
of
it
us,
is.
so you have more to prove.
Yeah, you're not one of us, so you got to prove that you're a fanatic. And so they did. And the Ottomans, of course, they conquered in the name of Islam, and they used armies of what they called janissaries. None of these were Islamic originally. Most of them were Slovaks, believe it or not, and Greeks and Albanians, and they converted them, forcefully to Islam and then made them fight. And the Persians, of course, they were kind of like their sparring partner for years, kind of like England and France. Now they're friends, and they have been for a while. The modern era changed everything, especially World War I. But this is some background here, right? So these people, they get into this very fervent about it, and they come over here. And I'm not speaking ill or saying anything, but they bring the fanaticism here. Because one of the worst things is you go back home and they tell you become Americanized. Well, I know this because when I was younger, I'd kind of talk like this, and for years I talked like that until I got into school in my hometown, and they were like, some of them talked that way and some of them didn't, but I was living in a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood, and I just sounded like a white guy, and I looked like a white guy. You look like a man, like a white man, and I'm half. But that was a problem because everybody wanted to beat me up, and I'm being serious. And so you had to assimilate. Then I go to Austin, and I talk, and I'll tell you what this has to do with it. I talked like, I changed the way I talk. My dad, I told my dad, I said, people make fun of the way my dad didn't talk. I said, why do you not talk like, Uncle Butch and Jimmy and everybody? He says, well, because if you start being around the city, and this is my dad's take on it, he goes, and you want to be somebody who wants to be, a person of enterprise, a person that wants to, be a entrepreneur or whatever it is you want to do. Well, you can't walk in with chewing tobacco dripping out of your mouth like your grandpa and be like, yeah, I want to run this place,
Wearing overalls.
My dad just kind of made that joke about it. He goes, you're not going to get very far. He goes, so I wanted to be taken seriously, so I changed the way I talk. And he told me, he goes, you should seriously think about doing the same, and maybe you won't get your ass beat. Well, the joke was on him because by that point, I was not getting my ass beat. Ha, ha, ha. But I did need to change the way I talk because it was, people don't take you serious when you're just sitting up there, and nothing against people like that. But there are people, it's not them that I'm talking about. It's the judgmental a-holes that judge you for talking that way. Then I start to talk this way, and I learned the ropes of the city, and I became urbanized. And then I go back home, and they're like, "Oh, you just a shitty boy now. You just shittified. You shitty snicker." And I'm like, "No, I'm cultured.
I'm distinguished, sir.
I've learned things. I've learned the earth is like this, moves. They're like, oh, I'm joking.
What? Fire.
They start to burn. They go get the fire. You make fire. You make flour. Orange flour. I'm like, no, I didn't do that. That's not what happened. I never taught them how to make fire yet. They don't deserve it. They don't deserve it. No, they haven't proven that they're trustworthy with that yet. Eventually we'll get there. So anyway, you got people that'll say, well, you're this, you're that, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm probably going to get attacked. And people are going to say that I'm being anti-Islamic or whatever. I'm not being Islamophobic or whatever. People claim that I'm an Islamic apologist, or that I'm a communist or a Nazi, or they'll say that I'm anti-Semitic, and then in the same sentence they'll say I'm a Zionist.
It's whatever they don't like. That's
Whatever they can come up with. That somebody really did that, folks. I'm not even joking. And so it's really it's rough. So these people, they come over here. They have I'm giving you why people are the way they are, and what can create some of these situations. This guy that came over there with the cleric, and I'm not going to say his name. They gave me his name, and I'm not even going to go there. But he was going room to room. Were you okay?
Phone call for work.
Is it something I need to deal with?
Yeah.
Okay. So he was going room to room with the cleric that was doing this supposed cleanse. They were doing the cleanse of the house. And it started off in kind of innocuous, but I think it was going after Azita at that time. She was staying there with her mother. Her and her husband at the time had moved in, and they got a house with her. Now, in the Iranian culture, much like the Arab culture, like they don't just abandon when they move away and they just go do whatever. That's an American thing. Mm-hmm. They will stick around and they will take care of the elders, and they will allow them to. And I have some friends that are Kurdish, and they're like that, and they stay with the older people. They don't just throw them, run off or whatever. And so what ended up happening with them, they moved in because her dad had passed away, and the mother couldn't. So they were like, well, you can move in with us, but they didn't have a real big place. And by their own admission, they were like, we didn't think we could get, a good, our mother had really good credit. We didn't at the time. And so they end up putting their money together. God dang, hold on. Can you get me a drink?
Yeah.
This tea's gotten gritty. It's just going to make it worse. Maybe this coffee will help. It's a little better, but it's got this. I put a lot of cinnamon in there, and it's ground up. So it kind of like my throat. Excuse me for 1 second. There it goes. All right. And I haven't eaten today, and I worked out really hard last night, so.
Yeah. Still sore.
Are you?
I'm back. I pushed it pretty hard. I used that one rowing machine, the single rows.
Mm-hmm.
That one's killer.
People hate it when I eat on them. Well, too bad. It's either that or pass out on the mic. Started feeling kind of weird. I was like, man. Okay, so back to this situation here. That's enough for now. What ended up happening with this guy? He passes away, and his family moves. The dad passes away, and Farah, his wife, had the two daughters, and they had a son that had passed away before they even left Iran. So there were 4 altogether, but then only one son came here, and he was the youngest. and he lived with them too. So it was the son, one of her daughters, Azita, and then her husband, Bobby. And they were Christian. And their son converted to Christianity, and so did her other sister. And Kirk did too. That's the guy who's the husband of the other woman. They all eventually ended up converting. The only one that hasn't, as far as I know, is Farah. And that's the mother. I don't know. Oh no, I don't think Kirk has either. I'm sorry about that. I don't think so. Let me see. Well, I don't have any notes on it, so I don't. But anyway, I don't think he did. But it's very interesting because when this guy came over to their house, he started talking about, like being very accusatory, saying he found the box that had like a Ouija board and some other stuff in there. And what happened was her little brother was supposed to throw it away. He didn't throw the stuff away.
Oh,
He kept it because a girl that he was dating at the time was into that kind of stuff. So he gave it to her. But then when they split up, she gave it back. So he just stuck it in the freaking basement. He's like, here it is, whatever. So that's the problem, that he comes over and he says, this is the problem. Look, you have this evil, wicked stuff here. And so this guy that was with the head cleric or whatever, when they were going room to room, Farah saw him kind of doing this, like he was doing this. And then he would go to another room and he would do it again. And she was just like, what are you doing? He said, I'm praying. I'm dispelling the jinn. I'm doing this. But she said that there was this heaviness that she felt, right? This is what her daughters had told me, that there was this heaviness that when she would go room to room, she was like, it got worse, substantially worse, like so bad that night after these people left, she began to throw up. She was sick. She got ill. And at one point she looked at her eyes in the mirror and her eyes went black and then came back to normal again. You couldn't see nothing. It was just like the pupils, and they just, it was it. And so she said, it was horrible. And she said that she called her son. He was at work, and she said, when you get home, let's take this stuff out, throw it out. Don't, I don't want it, whatever. And so he says, okay. He's like, I had just forgotten it was down there. I took it back and just stuck it there because I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't care. And he kind of laughed about it. Because up to that point, nothing had happened to him. He was like, there's nothing wrong with this house. You guys are the ones that are having the weird stuff happening, not me, And that was kind of his opinion on it. And Bobby, he's an American. He's a white guy, Caucasian, Christian, whatever. He's just like, I don't think this is anything but a demon, So he went and he tried to pray in one of the rooms with his wife, with Azita, and it was there's a guest bedroom, and they kept hearing noises in there, and their children were like hearing things. And that's one of the bedrooms where they stayed. And in that particular guest bedroom, it was a rather large house, and it was in the suburbs of Baltimore. Now get this. It was near a town that's right near the Patapsco State Park, Patapsco Valley State Park. It was close to that. Now, I did some research on this, and I looked it up, and I found out that where the Goatman, the origin sort of him in that area, because there's all these Goatman stories in Maryland, come from Bowie. Now I looked up Bowie. Bowie is actually only 30 miles from there. So something like that. I don't think it's not quite 30 miles. It's not even 30 miles from where they lived. So this is, somebody says, Paul Pachuro, Bowie, Maryland. Yeah. So it was such a weird thing. When I started going down the rabbit hole with this, they had no idea. These people are from Iran originally. They're not from here. They don't know that Goatman was running around in the woods or whatever. Well, except Kirk did. Now that's why I even bothered to remember his name, because Kirk said through his wife, she told me, she says that there was something that had happened to his cousin that when he was a kid, they were in that state park. They were at the Patapsco Valley State Park, and they were having a picnic, like a day, whatever. And when he was a little boy, he was like 6 years old. He went out into the woods, and this goat-like thing crawled up to him, like on all fours, and then stood up and then tried to grab him. And this thing it had a tool in its hand. It was not like a savage beast. It was like very, it had like, like a weapon in its hand. Like it would look like, get this, a hatchet of all things. Now, the reason that's important is because I don't know his cousin's name. I just know what Kurt told his wife, what she told me. The reason that's important is because some of the reports that have come out of Maryland about these Goatman-like creatures involve them. Get this, Tony. I don't know if you know this or not, but they'll attack vehicles with sticks. Yeah, and with something that looks like a spear. There's a couple of reports from that, and then a hatchet. And this is what's even weirder. The Goatman sometimes is described as having an all-goat head with a human-like body, but sometimes it's described kind of like a satyr. Now, a satyr is not necessarily this. It doesn't look the same. The satyr is like a man's face with little goat horns and the goat lower body.
Yeah.
And I think that they're distinctly different in one way. I think that the goat head, the creature with the goat head, when it shows up in certain urban settings, I believe it's demonic. And I'll explain to this. So what ended up happening with this family, Farah had decided that these people had done something. This is one of the reasons why she didn't go back to the mosque. And not to disparage anybody or whoever, and they didn't tell me which mosque or what it was, and I don't feel like getting into that. But they just said we didn't go back. And she had been going to the Christian church, but she dared not tell them that because there's a community of them there and they don't want to have problems. Mm-hmm. And so when the haunting really started, I say haunting, it was already going on. They had seen a shadow being that was like moving around the house at different points. They, especially near the kitchen, they were in the kitchen cooking, and there was like this, island, and they had like this thing that hung above it with pots and pans, and they would start clanging together. And her dad, before he passed, he only stayed there for like a year before he passed away or whatever. No, wait, that's the old house. Sorry, there was another house they lived there where that happened, but it carried over into this house, right? It carried over into the new house. So whenever they thought that whatever was happening was something that had followed them, and even took it a step further. Farah believed that it came from when Azita was a child, and what they saw in Iran, because she, her older sister had woke up crying, freaking out that something was on her. And when Azita went to shake her and get her awake, she felt like something crawled around onto her back and began to choke her. She didn't see it. This was in Iran. But she felt like periodically she would feel that. And they did all kinds of prayers, said all kinds of things from the Quran, and nothing ever alleviated it. When she went to church with her now husband, she accepted Christ right there after the first. She's like, I always knew there was more to it than this. It did not set well with me. And so about 6 months down the road from them being together, he began to experience something that would move around in between them in bed. Like it would get in between them and he would feel it like it was like an entity or something. And so he started telling her, look, there's something going on with you. You need some help. So he called up his pastor in the middle of the night. This guy came over, and him and his wife, and they put hands on her, and they prayed for her, and they released this thing through power, according to them, through the power of Christ. They got it off of her, and they saw this thing like slide up the wall. It's a very spidery looking thing, and it went out the door, but it was like it had the head of a man on it. But it was but it moved like a spider, and it had like this tail, like it was just weird. So who knows how long that had been on Azita, right? But her mother didn't believe that this could happen because she was not Islamic. So her and her dad were like, well, that couldn't happen, because, nobody can just pray to Isis, who to them was a man, right? And make that go away. They didn't believe that could happen. So there was this whole weird, there was this block there, the mental block, spiritual block, physical block. And get it. Look, it starts out as a mental thing. He's angry in his mind, her dad, right? He lets that infect his soul. And then it becomes a physical block where they actually block them from seeing the grandkids. Not them, but the dad. He was just like, I don't want to see them. I don't want anything to do with them. And he hated that they were Christians until the day he died. And literally the day he died, he accepted Christ and then he passed away. And I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but I'm trying to tell you how this is. One of the things that Bobby said through his wife, because I didn't talk to him, but what she said, he told her, was he was there first. And he said that he thought that he was dying and seeing hell. Like that's what he thought. And that when he began to pray with him, that's when he saw Christ, because he began to talk and like he was speaking to Jesus, and the last thing he said was Jesus. So that's very interesting that happened. But when these people came over from the mosque and began to do whatever it was that they were doing, not really the cleric so much as the other guy, because the other guy was wandering around the house kind of on his own while they were with the cleric. And Farah said, she was looking like, where's this guy? What's he doing? And he was in there like inspecting everything, like, oh, you have this here. What is this? What is that? He kept grabbing all these things. And he's not Iranian. So she thought maybe he had a bias against the Iranians because, at one time they were at war with the Arabs. And this guy was from that region. And so maybe he had some kind of grudge, right? Because Persians and Arabs are two different people. They're not the same people. Everybody thinks they have no clue. They don't know how it works. I get it because I know the different groups and ethnic groups there, and they believe differently. They're only really bound by their religion. And at one time, when Babylon held sway, Persia was a vassal state. And then when Persia held sway, Babylon, i.e. Iraq, was their vassal state. And then most recently, Saddam and Ayatollah, they went to war and beat the crap out of each other back in the 80s. It just was, when I was a kid, we were hearing about it all the time. And so, she thought maybe there was some bias there and maybe he was being the way, but she the way they described this guy kind of reminded me of like I want to say like something, because I don't know the guy, but the way they described him was like, he was like kind of rat face, cartoonish looking, like he almost, and this is what Azita said and her sister both. They were like, he looked like a rat in the face. He was like, he kind of had that.
Yeah.
He was just kind of a snivelly little villainous guy, with a big nose. And he just looked like he wasn't a good guy. Like he just looked like, and they were like, he and another guy that was like him, that was acted like him, was one of the reasons too why they just said, what, we're done, we're not going there again. And they were actually trying to find another mosque that Farah wanted to go to, and this is before her oldest daughter had converted to Christianity. Like I said, I think her husband still is Islamic, and it's weird. He like I said, he got it in that way from jail. He was in prison, and some people do. They'll convert to Christianity or Islam or whatever. They'll find something in jail. It's just what he did.
Yeah.
And somebody says here, Saddam Hussein, do I think he was the person? No, not really. But no, to some degree, yeah, he wasn't a good guy. But give me a political leader that is. Show me one.
Yeah.
We still had no business doing what we did.
Yeah.
To him or Gaddafi. I'm not going to give you a whole sermon on why we did it. I know exactly why we did it, but I can't tell you that because I will be canceled.
Show will start buffering conveniently.
Mm-hmm.
The bandwidth. Sorry, bandwidth is. It's not our fault. It's out of our hands.
Folks, one thing you're going to learn about me, if you haven't been paying attention already, is that I'm a realist. And I know it sounds crazy when you're talking about all this weird, crazy stuff. But I'm going to tell you what I know within reason that's not going to get me canceled or killed, because there's a lot of things that you should know. And one day, maybe we'll reveal it all. But we have a long way to go. So these people are dealing with something. The minute that those people leave from the mosque, they're dealing with something. And it is evil, whatever it is. Get this. The first night, okay, when Farah sees the black in her eyes, she starts to pray, and she starts to pray. Of course, she prays to Allah. And then her daughter, Azita, comes home. She was working at a department store at that time, or she was managing, whatever. She comes home, and she's like, Mom, what's the matter? What's wrong? Why are you the way you are? What's going on? She could tell because she was on the floor, and what looked like she'd been in prayer for hours. And she goes in there and she's like, she could hear her praying. And she's like, Mom, what's wrong? You've been in here for, since I've been home, like 2 hours. It's been, and she's like, since I walked through the door, you've just been on the floor. And she's like, she gets up and she says, something is wrong. And she told her the whole story. Zita did not like the people from the mosque because, of course, she was Christian and they had converted. And so they were very nasty and mean. And they had said some pretty bad things, and they had been cut off from a big chunk of their friends and family, had cut them off. And so, I mean, her dad, look, he didn't talk to them for 8 years. And so she says, look, I don't want them coming back over here. And she's like, and it really, truly, the house was in her mom's name, but it's really their house. They paid for it, right? So she was like, well, it's my house. And she's like, and she's like, no, it's our house. We put up the money for it. It's in your name. It's our house, And I'm going to tell you, right, I don't want them back here. And then Farah says, I'm okay with that. We're not going to argue. She's like, and she told her, she says, look, we have a situation here. She's like, and she told her, she says, and when she starts talking Farsi really quick, she knows it's something serious. And she says, and she told her, she says, we have to get out of this house, at least for a while, until, things can calm down. And she's like, well, what is it that's been so bad? And she says, look, I looked in the mirror and my face changed. I saw my eyes go black. And she started telling her all this stuff. So then she sits her mother down and she says, look, there's been something in this house, and it's been in the guest bedroom, and it's messed with our kids. And she says, yeah, and that's bad, whatever that is. She's like, but now there's something else here. And she's like, I don't know if they've joined forces or what they're doing, but she's like, there's another entity here, and it's worse than anything that's been here. Because there was something there when they first moved in, and I know how that goes. You move in, there's something already there. But then somebody sends something at you. There it is. But she said, we need to leave. So she was starting to become more frantic. And Azita tells her, she's like, we can't just pack up and we have nowhere to go. And we don't even have money for a hotel right now. We're broke, We're going to have to make do. She says, so I'll have the preacher come by tomorrow. And Farah was like, no. I don't want any more people coming here from the church, the mosque, anybody. I don't want anybody in the house. Don't bring anybody else here. And so there was an argument that ensued, and then it got pretty heated between her and her mom, and they didn't talk for a couple of days because she thought that her mom was stonewalling her because she's Christian and she's a Muslim. This is life. People do this. And so her mother was like, after a couple of days, they were sitting at the breakfast. They have a little breakfast table there. And she says, we're sitting at the breakfast table. My mother comes down and she looks absolutely horrible. She looks like she'd aged. She's like, my mother wore her age very well. She's like in her 60s and she looks like she's 40, But she comes down. She looks like she hasn't slept. She was in her room for like 2 days, barely talking to anybody, hadn't eaten. Came down. They had breakfast. And so she says, Mom, you don't look good. What's going on? And her mother tells her this crazy story. She says, when I was asleep the next night, she's like, I heard what sounded like a horse walking up the stairs. She's like, it literally sounded like horses' hooves. She's like, and I come out and I look out of my room, and she's like, and I look down the hall, and she goes, and I see this thing standing at the end of the hall. She's like, it was half of the body. It was like half of it was behind, like, you know, one of the walls. Because the way their house is built, she's like, you kind of go up and around. There's like this staircase, and then there's like this hallway. And it's a nice house. She's like, it's a nice house. They don't think it's the house. They think something is there, you know. But this thing, the thing was looking at them. Her, like part of the body was hidden behind a wall. So she just saw this like something sticking up out of its head. And she's looking at this thing and she's like, what is that? And she says she was kind of freaked out and she didn't know how to react. And so she was just standing there and she said she don't know what compelled her to do this. This part sounds kind of funny. And when I heard this, I was just going like, well, I don't know. So they have, like, we were talking the other night about silverware.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So she had a spoon that she was using to stir her tea. It's so funny. She throws it down the hallway at this being and it just goes right through it. And then the being just kind of goes like smoke and it's gone. And so, I mean, unconventional, but effective. I mean, you know, I don't know what kind of tea she was using. It might have been chamomile. Let's look up and see what kind of tea repels Goatman. But she said it so cracks me up. I started laughing when she said that. And she goes, I know, right? At least she got it. Like, I wasn't just laughing because her mom was in a terrifying situation. But I started laughing. And she's like, I know, right? Like, it, you know, she agreed. So it was just, I told her, I said, look, I just had never heard of anybody throwing a spoon in a cryptid.
I mean, what was it, real silverware or like?
Yeah,
like
it was a silver spoon.
Okay.
The real silverware. They only use real silver. That's what she said. Her mother and dad. Sorry.
So that makes sense.
Yeah. So
if we can make like a silver chancla, then I think that Hispanic moms will be some of the greatest exorcists of all time. They never miss.
Well, how do you know that that's gonna work?
I mean, if it works the same way it worked with the spoon, you take the chancla.
Yeah, but what if Goatman and the other demons are different?
I don't know. Maybe they're probably not going to want to be around an angry Mexican mom, though. I think an angry Mexican mom can give them a run for their money.
Huh?
It's Mexican.
So, speaking of goat, they just put goat piss in it. It's like they do.
That's what I'm drinking for.
What are you talking about? Corona?
Corona.
And Dos Equis?
They do. The Coke is better than the regular Coke because they use piloncillo corn.
It's also in a glass bottle.
Yeah, sugar cane.
Mm-hmm.
That high fructose corn syrup's garbage.
Yeah, that piloncillo.
Sit in the
but from what I've heard, though, is they don't even do that no more.
Stuff.
Really?
They don't use the piloncillo anymore.
It's like the main thing. Does it even say it on there?
Angela Pelagi. She says, I'm 84 minutes late. Yep, you are.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got to get back to the show here. While Tony plays with a Coke bottle like that, the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy. You ever seen The Gods Must Be Crazy?
Have you seen it? You've seen it, Tony.
I don't think so.
What? You never seen the movie?
It doesn't sound familiar.
Oh, man. We got to film that movie, dude.
Me.
Well, the last time we tried to find it, we couldn't find it on any of the platforms.
We got to try again.
But anyway, Angela, if you stick around, we're going to show your sculptures. We're going to show everybody something really cool at the end of the show. So stick around at the end of the show. And these may become a part of the giveaways, and we're going to sell them too. It's going to be our PRT mascot. We have one now. So somebody said worst movie ever. That movie's hilarious. You're probably young and you don't get it. Like young people don't. They don't understand humor.
But see, I watched that movie when I was a kid. They showed it to us in school. I liked that then.
Would never do that now. I can tell you that. But so what happened with these people? She says, I heard hooves and I saw this thing standing in the hallway. I threw a spoon at it and I ran back to my room. She goes, but I saw it like dissipate. And so her daughter becomes really freaked out. She's like, Mom. And she's like, that's not just a jinn, that's a demon. Now, you're going to ask what the difference is. The difference is in Islam, they believe that there are evil jinn, there are neutral jinn, and then there are actual helpful ones. In Christianity, not so much. It's just a demon and everything's a demon. But to them, everything's a jinn. There could be like this growling four-legged creature, and they're like, it's a jinn. This thing could be flying through the air, and they're like, same thing. It's the same thing. A ghost-like entity, it's the same thing. They don't believe in any, it's always the same word, always. And so, but they do acknowledge that there is a whole, there's some that are okay. They're not all bad. Whereas Christianity is like, they're all evil. They're just trying to trick us. And I say this, if you go around putting, this is my opinion on this. If you go around just putting labels on everything and putting it into one big category, you're not going to be prepared for when something happens. Because these evil entities, just like people, they have certain tendencies. They have certain proclivities. They have certain, they can become addicted to things just like people do. That's the thing you got to realize, right? We were talking about this the other day, us two and Scorpio.
Mm-hmm.
What we were talking about was I can't remember what we were, the conversation, but I said that the demons can get something can happen to them just like it does to us. I was trying to remember what it was we were talking about.
Was it Bigfoot?
No,
they can get attachments.
They can get attachments. Yeah.
Yeah.
They can get attachments, and it's like they're sub-natured beings, which are more physical, and then some that are more metaphysical. In other words, like some of them have more of this side than the other one, but they can get attachments just like we do. And one evil entity can parasitize another. It's a whole weird thing. I'm not even going to get into a whole thing. And so these entities, they do what they do. And so Azita tells her, she says, this thing that's not normal. That's not like a ghost. That's not like the shadow beings we've seen. These things, yeah, exactly. John says they have certain expertise, like they specialize in certain things. Yeah, just like people. So this thing showed itself again. Her mother had her own bathroom, right? Or not her own bathroom, her own bedroom, right? So this thing was hanging out near the bathroom. When she got up to go to the bathroom, she walks into the bathroom and she turns on the light and she sees this thing standing there right in front of the shower. And she's just like, oh my gosh. And this is, there's more than one bathroom, but that one is the one she predominantly used. The children used a different bathroom, and they were saying now, the next night after this whole conversation happened, later that night, this is breakfast, right? The second or third night, whatever, after the clerics had left, the children were now saying that something had come into their room and had literally grabbed one of them by the foot and pulled her halfway off the bed. These are Azita's children. And they woke up screaming and now I asked this question, so what time was it? She said 3:13 a.m. That night, after the brunch that they had together at the house. So going back to this other guy, Kirk, that's married to the older sister, right? So Kirk, he's a white guy, like I said, but he grew up, his cousin, the story, in the Patapsco Valley National or State Park, right? Something tries to grab him. He runs back to his parents and he tells them about it, and nobody's really listening to him, not really believing him. They go look for a person, right? There was a family friend that was there with their children, and they told them, they said, look, there's this being, this creature. We've seen it. It inhabits this area. They hadn't seen it there, but they had seen it in the area. They said that it ran across the road one day, and it was carrying what looked like a rabbit, but it was deceased, and it saw them, and it just ran real fast across the road, and it was like a satyr looking type creature. The thing that grabbed Kirk's cousin looked more like a kind of like the one from Purgatory Road that we hear so much about. It looked like a black, like it had fur, like black fur, and it had a goat-like head, and it had the fur kind of turned in the arms and body, legs were almost like hair, like really thick hair. But then the lower legs were goat-like and more like the goat. It was very much a mix of goat and man, but the head looked very much Goatman like a goat. You know, you got two different kinds. Well, probably more than that. But those, and then there's some I think that are just absolutely demonic. Now, these things could be something, and I'm going to say this, and this may not be popular, but when the fallen were here, i.e., possibly what they could be, Anunnaki, we're not sure, but whatever, they could have tampered with something, or it could have gone even further back, or it could be less. I mean, you know, something was created, okay? Just like I think Dogman was, these werewolves. And then maybe our really nice government that doesn't do anything wrong, you know, they got a hold of some stuff and they started changing DNA and messing with things. I'm spitballing here. I'm not saying this is exactly what I believe because I don't know. I know I don't want to meet one of these damn things. I can tell you that. I'm not down with it. I mean, when I was a kid, I had heard of Goatman before I heard of Dogman. I never knew what a Dogman was, and I hadn't seen the Wolfman creature. In the back of my mind, I always knew they were real. Like it was like you kind of knew like that they were real. But you tell yourself this is not real. These are just fantastical stories that people tell. And I'd heard some when I was young. And I had heard my relatives talk about it, and I thought, y'all are crazy, man. And so I think part of it is just so you can function and not be afraid to go in the woods, live in the woods, and go out into the pasture and do what you got to do. You just tell yourself that none of that is real. I think that's a very common thing. I think and that's what keeps people mentally, you know, they're not falling apart and not having anxiety when they hear coping mechanism. Yeah, there you go. And so you have this sort of like there's a psychosis there that develops once you see it, and you're just like you think everything is that for a while. You're just like it could be this thing. The dreams don't help. Believe me, when you have these nightmares, these dreams, that really gets. But that's what happened. So his cousin, and this is a story that Kirk told his wife to tell me. When they were having a sleepover one time, his other cousin was having a birthday sleepover. So there was like 7 or 8 of them. They all went over there. They all took their little sleeping bags and they were having a good time, whatever. And the cousin that had been abducted when he was 6, well, almost abducted, because it dropped him. And get this, I'm going to get into it. I'm going to jump ahead. I'll tell you why it dropped him. He started screaming in the middle of the sleepover, and everybody's like, "What is wrong with this guy?" You know, like what's wrong with this dude, man? Like, and everybody wakes up and they're all aggravated and kind of PO'd that this kid woke everybody up screaming. And get this, it was 3 a.m. 3 something. He don't remember what. It was 3 something, right? And he said that he wakes up and this kid's screaming and he peed the bed. And everybody was just like, what's wrong with this kid? At this point, he was 9, right? So he was only 3 years removed from what happened to him. Oh, they're all adults now. But this happened at the Patapsco State Park or whatever, Patapsco Valley or whatever, State Park, whatever. So tell me now, this particular park is only 30 miles from Bowie, where the Goatman's origins in that area are. And so when you go through those, like we went through the files and we saw a ton of Goatman stuff. We had a friend who's a bouncer, used to be a bouncer, and him and his brother had a horrific, he told us face to face at our friend's club, a horrific encounter with some kind of Goatman-like creature that attacked their car when him and his aunt and his mom had gone out Christmas shopping. I believe were they Christmas shopping? So this guy told us to our face to face. It was like 6 or 7 of us there. And you're sitting there going like, you know, I did not, these people had no clue what this was. They didn't have any stories or legends to go by because they were Iranian, and I mean they're living over there, but they don't know about this, and it wasn't something that Kurt had ever brought up or talked about. He never had said anything about this until this creature made its presence known inside their house. And I'll tell you what happened. The mother, Farah, she wakes up and the closet door is open, right? This is the second appearance or the third appearance of this thing. She walks into the walks over to the closet, and she sees this, like, get this, it's dark, right? And all she has is this one of these candles that's going. And now if you're going to use candles in your house, try to use soy base or try to use something that's not, like, I know everybody likes those.
Yeah. I think you can get like beeswax candles.
Yeah,
too.
beeswax, because Bath and Body Works smell good, but you got to be real careful with
Yeah.
fragrances. Okay. But anyways, this dude is something, you know, it's like right there. She sees something moving, and she's already knows what it is. She knows that there's this, and so she starts to try to back away, and she hears like a snort, you know, and then she hears the boom boom, like two steps, like hooves, and then it comes out of the darkness, and she said that the horns were like piercing the ceiling, but they weren't making any sound, but it made two cut marks. You could see it, like where it had scraped the ceiling. This thing was tall, very tall. So she's sitting there and she's going like, this is ridiculous. This thing it's with the horns, it was like 9 feet tall or something, you know, and she was terrified. She runs out of the room screaming. Her daughter and her son-in-law come out, and they all begin to pray. Her son-in-law, Bobby, is very brave, and he grabs a cross and he goes in there to the room and starts to say the Lord's Prayer. And while he's doing it, he feels like he's being grabbed around his throat. And when he looks, he sees something just kind of move. It's just a black, he said it was like a black pyramid, upside down pyramid. That's the way it looked. And it moved and it went outside the wall, window, whatever, and out there on a tree there's this thing that is standing there, and then it kind of squats down. And remember we were talking about how it looked transparent? It was black, like smoke black, gray, whatever, but he could look through it. He could see through it. And so it was like, he was like, what the heck? So he went room to room, door to door, doing the traditional cleanse. It's like what we did recently. And which is one of the reasons why I picked this Goatman story over the other one, just because, you know, I thought this one was, you know, more appropriate for what's been going on. But this thing was outside the window. Yeah. And so they go back inside. He goes back inside because he went outside, he did the cleanse, and he said he saw something that looked like it was crawling around and crawling up underneath the fence to leave the property. So everything's fine for a little while. Everything seems to kind of go back to normal. But then Farah's there by herself. And she had made it a point not to be alone. She's like, I don't want to be left alone in this house. There's something here. She's like, they're like, no, everything's fine now. It's good. She goes, no. And they had one of those closets under the stairs. And so she's walking down the stairs and she hears boom, boom, boom. And she's looking, and it's not something on the stairs. She's like, what is that? And so she goes downstairs and she hears it again. Boom, boom, boom. And it was coming from the wall, not the door, but the wall where the closet under the stairs was. So she gets all freaked out and she's like, I got to check this out. I got to see what this is. And so she has a copy of the Quran. She grabs it and she runs over there to it and she puts it on the wall and starts to pray. Now get this. While she's praying with the Quran and holding it against the wall, she hears laughter. Like a laughter. She said it started out sounding like a man, then it turned into like what sounded bestial. Like something that was like, ha, 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 and it got real low, and it started to laugh at her. And then she gets up the courage. I don't know how this woman did it, but I guess if you're getting bullied by something, you're going to get up the courage to do it, to try to open the closet door. And she said this was the first time when she actually, what she believes, saw the word in her mind, Jesus. And it was like, you know, she said like it was like a word / image of Jesus.
Mhm.
And it was him on the cross, the crucifixion. And there was a voice that told her in Farsi that it says, seek him out. And so for a minute there, she was like thinking about it. And then she opened the door and this rush of hot air came out. And then she didn't see anything. And she said it was an awful stench. It smelled, I mean, obviously it was sulfur, sulfuric smell.
Mhm.
So then she runs out of the house and she takes off, and there's like a community center they go to, whatever. And so she meets some of her friends there. They're Muslim, and they're telling her that she needs to do this, she needs to do that, blah, blah, blah. And some of them start saying, well, it's because your daughters are Christian and, you've let them come there, and Christians are idolaters and they're all going to burn in hell and blah, 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 blah. So she hears all of this stuff, right? Same thing Christians say about the Muslims. The same thing.
Of course.
Everybody's going to burn in hell, right? Nobody's really going to go to heaven. Just one guy. That's it. One guy's going to make it. And he gets to choose 139,000 friends. But 139,999.
Isn't that Calvinist? Whatever.
Yeah. But anyway, he says, so they're telling her all this crazy stuff. So she gets real upset, and she decides to drive back home and just sit out in the front yard. I'm just going to sit out there in the car. I'm not going to go inside, because if I go inside, something can happen, and I don't want to be there. And as soon as my daughter gets home, she's usually home by 6 or 7. I'm just going to wait, blah, blah, blah. And so she waited, and the daughter says, hey, I got to close tonight, so I won't be home till like 11 o'clock. So then she's just like, oh my gosh. And her daughter's husband was out of town. And the grandkids, they're in school, at this point, whatever. And then there's a neighbor, a friend or whatever, they picks them up and they carpool, and then they drop them off. So she sits there. Once the kids come home, she decides to take them out to eat. She says, texts her daughter, says, I'm going to take the kids out to eat. I'm not going to go inside. Something's going on. So the daughter comes home, right? And they're still not there. And she got off early. She didn't have to close that night, the whole whatever. So she comes home. She's like, it's like 9 o'clock at night. My mom is still gone. So I call her. I'm like, where are you at? And she's like, well, I took the kids to the local fast food place. I'm not going to say the name of it. But anyway, we took them there. And one of the kids got really sick. Like really sick on the way home. So she says, we're dealing with that right now. She's like, and then I stopped over at this other woman's house. And I don't even know her name, but she stopped there. And she's like, so that's where we're at. She gave her all these things that they did. And she's like, Mom, it sounds like you're just trying to avoid coming home. And she's like, yeah, because there's something there. But she didn't tell her what happened. At that point, she didn't know. So Azita goes inside the house. She starts to walk up the stairs, and she hears something walking around upstairs. There's like this landing, and then they go up. There's another set of stairs, whatever. She's like, I go up these stairs, and as I'm starting to get to the top, I hear something like clip, clop, clip, clop. That's my words. Mm-hmm. But it sounded like a horse. Now, you got to remember, up to this point, nobody has seen what this thing looked like other than her husband saw a quick glimpse of it. And then her mother. Nobody else that's been there, the other daughter, the son who lived there, he hadn't seen nothing had happened to him. Nothing.
Yeah.
Up to this point. And she goes up the stairs, and then she's like, I'm too scared to go all the way up. She goes, I'm about to look down the hallway. And she's like, and I can't do it. I can't bring myself to go up the stairs. She's like, and I started going back down. And I heard this voice. Now, this is what really got me. She said, Azita said that it was speaking she's like, you recognized it. She recognized it. But it was not something like she could audibly understand. So, smart guy that was friends with the son. Now, he's an Arabic guy. He's actually a Lebanese dude. He was smart. He said, I was watching this documentary, and these people were talking about this weird stuff that I don't know which documentary it was, what it was. And he said, if you listen to the words of these things, if you can catch it and figure out what they're saying, it might help you. And he told them, he said, try to record it. So they did. So they installed cameras, and then they had sound. They put in sound on some of these spots or whatever, especially where the kids were. And one of the kids, the son, he's the youngest. He's like 20 something, whatever. Him and his friend, the Lebanese guy, they went to another friend of theirs that deals with this. And so he played some of it in different, like he put it through some kind of computer filter, and they went through all these different iterations of it or whatever. And they found that it was literally their own language backwards.
Mm-hmm.
It was Farsi, but it was backwards. That's why she could kind of understand it, but not really. So yeah, very, very telling, you know, and the things that it was saying were very blasphemous, very blasphemous, very evil. We've heard this before. People, they'll have, somebody tried to send me one once, and I was like, I don't want it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to. And so it was something that was being said, and it was very specific, you know, and it sounded very guttural. And then there would be these sort of growling sounds that would come through. And then the son had his own experience because he left the recorder sitting there on his nightstand. And this, oh God, this part right here is something else. Okay, so this part right here, he wakes up to this thing playing. Like the recorder came on by itself. And he wakes up, he's like, and he's looking around his room and he's like, what the heck? And the recorder was spinning like fast. And then it just went and it stopped. And he was just dumbfounded. And this is the first thing that ever happened to him. Nothing had happened to this guy at this point. So he didn't think anything was going on. He gets up off of his bed and he's like, I'm on the other side of my bed. And he goes, and I'm looking and I'm just like, I'm waiting for something to happen. Thankfully, right then and there, nothing happened. Right? Except something shoved him back onto the bed and started to drag him by the top of his shirt over the top of the bed and was pulling him. And literally he had no control over, I was joking about nothing happened. It did. Drug him over the top of the bed, and his foot, by the grace of God, his foot got hung on the top cover. What do you call it? The sheet, the whatever, the thing that goes over the top of it or whatever. I can't remember what he called it. It's whatever. It got hung on that, right? And then this thing, the window is open. His window is open. The screen is gone. It's already prepared this. Like, and he goes, this thing was trying to pull me, and my foot felt like it was pulling my leg out of socket. And it was like it was going to throw me out the window. He goes, and for some reason, he goes, had never prayed, he said, I went to mosque, but I wasn't really a Muslim. I didn't accept it. I didn't believe in it. He's like, I didn't believe in the Christianity or Islam. I didn't believe in any of it. And the same thing happened to him when he was being pulled toward the window. He said the same thing happened to him. The idea of Christ popped into his head. And he was just like, he asked Jesus, he said, Jesus, help me, save me, protect me. And it's like the force of this thing let go, but then it got reinvigorated, and, you know, because he didn't have the faith. Mm-hmm. He knows now, right? And the tape recorder, it was just playing. And so he takes his foot, the one that's not in the stirrup of the whatever, the thing that goes over the top of the bed.
Probably the comforter, duvet.
Comforter, that's what it is. And he's like, I don't know how my foot got tangled up in the sheet and the comforter, but it did. Because he said he must have been rolling around in bed that night, like not, you know, whatever. But he said, my foot got tangled up. He goes, but I kicked the dresser, the nightstand. It was a nightstand. He goes, I kicked it a couple times. And he goes, I instinctively just thought I'm going to kick, you know, because that thing was playing. And the tape recorder, it was a little small one, right? A little, you know, digital recorder, whatever. It was sitting up, straight up at this point. And it fell onto the floor and it turned off. And then this thing dropped him. Like it just ended, like boom, he was on the ground. He said, I was probably 1.5 feet off the ground. This thing was physically grabbing me. He goes, nobody believes me. He's like, even my sisters were just like, really, like they didn't believe him, you know. And they thought there was going to be some kind of joke, because he says sometimes I joke around and they think that I'm kidding, and I'm not. Hold on one second, folks.
Bump or something.
Yeah, it sounded
Like
like
a bang.
something hit the blinds. You heard that? All right, go ahead. So we just heard something weird. But anyways, this thing was pulling him, and then it just suddenly stops. Like it's done, right? It's you know, he's a foot and a half off the ground, and he asked me if I believed him. I didn't know what to tell him. I mean, you know, I just, you know, he gave the phone back to his sister. It was just like, I said, yeah, I mean, it's not that I don't know, but they said he's always joking around and making jokes. At that point, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, all you can say for sure is that like, I'm a believer in the phenomenon.
Yeah. Well, that's
but-
kind of what I did. I was like, no, you're a dumbass. Hand your sister your phone back. And this is the same, right? Same thing.
What are you people smoking?
Same thing.
Get off my phone.
Stop smoking salvia, dude. You won't have these kind of trips or whatever. No, but it did, you know, it affected him. And so he's a dude, he said, man, he cried for like 2 days, and he didn't want his sisters seeing him because they were always teasing him. He was the youngest, always bullied by him. He said he was bullied by his sisters. I was like, believe me. I can tell you. So this dude, he decides that this is, you know, a sign. So his friend, who's Maronite Christian, tells him, hey, you know, come to church with us, go to my church or whatever. So he started going to the church with them, and then he converted, you know, and so his dad was very like, you know, you have to do everything Islamic, whatever, blah, blah, blah. His dad's gone. So he's, you know, and so he goes to his mother the day after he accepted Christ. He goes to his mother, and he goes, my mom likes to sit outside on the deck, you know, and he goes, and so I go out there and I sit on the deck with her, and I told my mom, I said, Mom, she's like, I know what you're going to say. You're going to try and tell me that I need to become a Christian to protect me from the devil. And he says, whatever this is. He's like, because since I've been praying and I hung up some crosses, and basically told her, you know, that since he's changed, you know, and started doing things, he was a heavy smoker of marijuana, and he drank a lot. And now people are going to say, well, no, weed's not bad, because people that like weed, they will defend it to the ends of the earth.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you that it's the greatest miracle thing that's ever been invented or whatever. I'll say this: people under the age of 50 who smoke marijuana are 6 times more likely to die of a heart attack and 4 times more likely to die of a stroke prematurely. So yeah, there was an article I had, and I was going to post it, but I was like, I'm not going to stir the pot, but I just did. So whatever, go argue amongst yourselves. People are going to start talking crap. They're going to be like, nah, weed's great. It does everything. It makes me play my instrument better. And then you listen and you're like, you're like, wow, yeah, that trumpet sounds great now. I mean, you're doing good. Keep smoke more, and it'll make you into, like, you know.
Yeah, it's a very polarizing subject. If you ever want to start an argument on the internet, just start talking about weed and slightly criticizing it, and then everyone else who is within earshot of it, they'll create the drama for you. You can just walk.
See, we
off.
already got people like you said.
Yeah,
listen to
see,
this. It's not the weed; it's because the food you eat after.
man, come on.
Oh man, come on, bro. Some of these people aren't
Just
even
proving our
heavy
point.
set, bro. I had a friend who had 2 friends, really skinny people, really small people. One of my friends, Beto, ended up like, he had, you know how small he is, how
Yeah.
skinny and small, barely ate. The guy had barely ate. He's skinnier than Tony. And Tony's not a big eater. We try to get him to eat. He just doesn't eat. Like, you know, he just doesn't. But he don't have an appetite. But yeah, this guy, and he ended up with super duper high blood pressure. And so yeah, you can say what you want. And then I had another friend who was probably just as skinny as him, but a little bit taller. He was one of my old bosses from years ago, and he smoked so much, and he ended up with really bad high blood pressure and a lot of health problems, dude. A lot of problems. And so I don't, like I said, everything in moderation. There are some people that say THC can actually help with like pain, and it can do things for you, if you're having anxiety or whatever. But there's certain ways. Now, the reason I didn't post it really is because it didn't say how they were ingesting it, whether it was, through edibles or smoking or vaping.
Yeah.
Because that can all play a role too. So that's why I was like, I'm not going to post this, because then people are going to throw it because it didn't say.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to tell me that, then that's not going to help, because I think that the smoking of it has a lot to do with it.
Oh yeah. I mean, smoking anything, any smoke going in your lungs is not good.
Yeah. And then you have sativas and indicas, and of course, one of them is sort of more up and one of them's down. So if you're smoking sativa, I mean, you're probably going to have, it could raise your blood pressure. I think the indica will too, depending on who you are. But anyway, bottom line is this: just be careful with that stuff. It is what it is. So this guy, though, what he said, okay, and I don't remember his name, and I don't have it down, but he was like, I'm not going to smoke anymore. I'm going to quit drinking. And he stopped going to clubs. He stopped doing, whatever. Totally turned his life around. Young man in his early 20s now, and he's doing good. So that's good for him. And he had no more issues with this entity. And he took that tape recorder and he got rid of those recordings because he believed that was giving it power. This is what he believed, right? So I'm not saying this is what he should have done, and I'm not here to judge people or whatever, or their religions or whatever. I'm just telling you what I was told, and I know what I believe. Okay, that's it. You don't have to believe like me. We can still be friends, all right? But this family was plagued by this entity, and so the youngest child of Azita, who's only like 5 years old at this time, starts screaming and runs into her room and says that there was something in the closet. And this was it wasn't late at night. It was like 8 o'clock at night. And so she goes in there and she's like, "What's in the closet?" She's halfway expect, because these are children. She said that sometimes that they would get scared over nothing, but sometimes it was something. And this time she goes in there and she says, "There's this big pile of stuffed animals in there." And she says she saw something fall, like one of them fall, and then another one move, and it was like something was in there. And she said she saw this, like what looked like a black arm come out, like black, like my shirt. And that's when she just grabbed her daughter and ran out of the room, screamed. And her husband, who's a big guy, he goes in there and he looks and he doesn't see anything. So one day they go to the movies and they want to take the mother with them, but they have to have a babysitter. So there's a friend of theirs who's from Iran that they were good friends with. And him and his girlfriend come over and they babysit. Well, the girlfriend really did it. He was just there. But they're downstairs, like watching television or whatever. And they brought their children to play with them. And so everybody had gone to sleep because it's like after 10 o'clock, and it's even though it's the weekend, the kids get tired. And so they were saying, "Hey, we're downstairs watching TV. One of the kids is laying there with us. The other three are upstairs." And they hear this noise, which sounds like, crying or something. And they go upstairs and they could just hear like this whimpering. They get to the top of the stairs. The babysitter, the main babysitter, the girl, she goes up, and the guy's behind her. He grabs a bat because they don't know what it is. And they hear a scratching noise too. And right before all of that, they heard like a thud. So all of this is going on. And so they go upstairs to see what's going on. Two of the children come running out of one of the rooms, and it's one of the Azita's children and one of their children. So they jump into their like arms and want to be carried down the stairs. And when they do, they go back, and the other child, and I don't know his name, but he's still up there. And they said it's got him, And they're like, what is it? And they're like, they couldn't describe it. They just said it looked like a black mass, right? So they go up the stairs and they go into the room, and there inside the closet is the little boy, and he's hiding in the back of the closet because something had come into the room and was trying to crawl through the mass of stuffed animals or whatever. And he thought it was coming after him, but it crawled and it went through the wall. So he heard something else moving around, and he was terrified of what he had just seen, but he heard something else there. So this child tells everybody there's two of them. There's multiple. There's not just one entity. There's two of them. And he said they look the same, and he had seen them before. And they had come into their room at night, and they're both the same height. They look like twins, and they're standing there at the foot of their bed watching them sleep. And he was told by these creatures, and I don't know if they told it into his mind or they spoke it with their mouths. The parents don't know either, but it was telling him basically like, don't say anything or we're going to hurt you. You know, it was implied. My words, I'm saying like, but that's what I gathered. Like, you know, something bad's going to happen. Well, I think it's going to hurt them. That's what I think. That's my opinion, you know? So I kind of added my opinion in there, and I told them that. But yeah, so something is happening here. And then at one point, one of the daughters gets off the bed and something grabs her. She falls so far that she ended up biting her tongue and made her mouth bleed and whatever, and hurt her chin. And for a split second, when she looks back, she sees, oh, it's one of those little bugs.
I think they're coming back.
Is this one of the green ones or the white
On your
ones?
chair.
Is that the green one or the white one?
I think it's a white one.
The little white ones. They're like these little.
Yeah.
They're not moths. I don't know.
No.
What they are. And then there's like these little green ones that come and land on you.
Yeah, they're cool little flying bugs, whatever.
Yeah,
they
they're
are.
just friendly little dudes. And so, anyways, what happens is the child she falls and hurts herself. And she said when she looked back, she saw this goat man. Now, get this. This is where it kind of gets kind of weird, because she looks back and she sees what looks like a man's face with horns. So that would be like a satyr. But up to this point, these things were looking like they had the head of a goat with horns. But this thing is like laughing, and it looks like a man with a beard with no mustache, and it has horns. But she doesn't see anything else other than its fingernails were dirty and it was claws, and it's trying to grab her and pull her under the bed. Now, that's weird. I mean, that is so bizarre, but she starts screaming, and then before anybody could even get in there, she got loose and crawled away. And so they decided, like against Farah's wishes, to bring in a preacher, because the last straw for them was Farah was leaving to go to the grocery. You remember this part, right? We talked about this. When she was getting in the car to leave to go to get grocery, or coming back from getting groceries, and nobody was there. She'd finally gotten to where she would just run upstairs and barricade herself in her room and stay in her room because of the weird crap that was going on. And so she had gotten so used to this nonsense. She's coming home from the grocery store. She had 3 bags of groceries. She said it wasn't a whole lot of stuff. And she said that when she was getting ready to walk up to the steps, go inside the house or whatever, she sees something move inside the house. And then she's just like, oh crap, like here we go again. She sees this thing come up to the door. So she starts walking backwards and starts to go back to the vehicle to put the stuff back in the van. Well, I guess she has a van, whatever. But they were going to put it back she was going to put it back in the van, and she looks and she sees this thing standing there in the doorway. And it's just the shadow of a goat man. Like you could see it with the horns and everything. It was right there. And she said that it went invisible. Like it was there, then it was gone. But then she saw something move, like they have this glass door, and there's like this curtain right there, kind of like that keeps, bless you. Like a lot of people's houses, like in our neighborhood, we have the glass door, whatever. Well, it's not a door. The door's not glass, but there's like a window type thing or whatever. Yeah. But there's this window there, And she sees the curtain get pulled back, and there's nothing. She can't see nothing there, but something pulled the curtain back like it was looking at her. And so it terrified her so bad, she dropped one of the shopping bags and threw the other two into the seat and just drove out and went to her friend's house that lived a few blocks over. The friend that she had, now her friend, who is also Islamic, though, told her that if it was her, and she told her this kind of on the side, she's like, if it was me, I'd do anything I could to get rid of it. And she's like, even if it meant, asking Christ, because they believe that he's a great prophet. They don't believe that he's the son of God and has divinity and all that, but where we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyways, like I said, I talked to them. I tried talking to Farah. She declined to actually on the phone with me. She was just talking through her daughters. I think she was a little bit we spoke briefly when I called. It was brief, but she was just kind of basically relaying it, and the daughters were telling me, and she was there. I guess I was on speaker, so but you didn't really give me like there was a lot more that could have been said. I think that you did. She was kind of worried, and there was a particular horrific incident that I'm not going to repeat. I'm not going to do it. And she was saying that this thing had literally put thoughts in her head, bad thoughts like of unaliving herself.
Mm-hmm.
She thinks that that's been part of it. And as far as I know, it's still happening right now. It's gotten way calmer because they went ahead and got the preacher to come and help or whatever, but it's still happening, in particular to Farah and one of the children. The little boy that was in the closet, he claimed that what he saw crawl through just looked like a black demon. It didn't even look over at him. It just it crawled through the wall. And it had these weird horns and this shaggy hair. Some sort of variation of the Goatman is all I can say.
Mm-hmm.
And these things could manipulate things physically, like the lights would come off and on. Things would blow out, and they'd have to go in. They'd come home and all the water would be on, the water would be off. It would turn off while they were showering. It was a haunting for sure, but it was just so malevolent. This thing was so malevolent. And the hallway, they found like scratch marks all over the walls in the hallway, all over the place.
No.
Like they had to have it redone and had it repainted because of the scarring on the wall. And so you have this, and I looked, there was a picture of it. I don't know. I mean, anybody could argue that somebody did it with their own fingernails or whatever, but I mean, I take their word on it because it doesn't look natural to me. I think that, you could say, hey, that they should move out, but I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's what this is. I don't think it's that easy. And I think as long as, in my opinion, as Farah does not, because the final thing that she asked and her daughter said, I said, what did she say? Because she was speaking Farsi for the most part. Her daughter, and I speak very little Farsi. I'm not, that's not one of my languages. And so they asked me that, she says, my mother wants to know what to do. What can we do about it? And I said, this is me, this is my opinion. And if you don't like it, you don't have to listen or whatever. But I said she needs to accept Christ.
Yeah.
Your brother did it. Y'all did it. But the older daughters, the one that I did say her name, not Azita, the one that's living there, but the older daughter said that she's not doing very good with her husband because of the religious thing. But he vacillates back and forth between, wanting to be like her, but then not. He backs off. And it kind of reinforces the mother, Farah's, whatever. So I said this, and she speaks English, but I told her, I said, look, here's my recommendation to you. If you want my advice, and this is for anybody out there that's listening, Christ is the one that's going to be able to help you. That's all I can tell you. I don't know what else to say. I mean, when you rebuke something in the name of Christ, that's what works. I don't really hear, in fact, I haven't heard of anybody rebuking anything in the name of Allah. And I have lots of friends that are Muslim. I do. And I've never heard of any other buddy that you could use their name and it would stop. That's just I've never heard that. I mean, and you got to think too, like we've covered at this point, thousands of reports. We get them all the time. I mean, and I hustle a lot up, and I'm not, well, I'll be honest, like I do pick reports, that are going to make for better, whatever. And I do pick reports to retell that have something to do with Christ too, because I seriously think that's the way. But I'm telling you in all sincerity, I don't have any reports of anybody rebuking anything in Allah's name. Nothing. I mean, you think you'd get one, and as many people that we've talked to from the Middle East that were Islamic, there's nobody. Unless you guys know of any. I mean,
no.
I haven't heard.
And Tony, at one time, you were Muslim.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so I don't, and I've read the Quran. I've studied it, and I just, I'm not Islamic. I never have been, never will be, but I just don't. I'm telling you folks, as sure as I'm sitting here, man, if this is what I told her. I said, Farah, you need to accept Jesus. And she's like, well, so I asked her daughter what she had said. She says, well, she'll think about it. And I was like, she needs to think really hard and fast, because this thing is not, it's slowed down, but it's not going away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad, because I don't want to tell somebody that there really is no other options. I don't have any.
You could just, all you can do is give them the only other option that you're aware of.
Mhm.
And that's Christ. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what works for us. We can't tell you something that we don't know.
Yeah.
Because it's like this. It's like if what you're doing is the correct way to do things, then why is it not working? I mean, like, if what you're doing isn't working, then maybe you need to change what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just it's that
I mean,
simple.
it's
But it's easier
definite-
said than done. I mean, you're asking people to re-examine their entire religious worldview.
Mhm.
So it's not an easy thing to do, but it does have to be done, I think.
And it was hard for me to have to sit there, and her daughters would kind of, they were reaffirming what I was saying, and they kind of laughed, like, Mom, you're being stubborn, whatever. And it's a nervous laughter. It's not like laughing, haha. It's like they're kind of like, haha, Mom, like. And so I could hear it in their voices that they want her to do this, but she's just kind of she's apprehensive. There's trepidation there, and I get it when you've been raised for 60 years or 60 something years, whatever. Yeah, that's what you are,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and it is a part of their identity, and just as Christianity is a part of ours, but one of the things I explained to them, and this is something that I explained that maybe her daughters didn't even totally understand, and they asked me about my beliefs, things like that. I told them, I said, look, I say this, and I told them, I said, you guys, I told her mother, I said, you guys believe that we are idolaters, that we are worshiping Christ. I don't worship Christ. I worship God through Christ. And they
There's a
asked me
difference.
about the Trinity and the Holy Spirit. Yeah, there's a difference. And I told them that the Holy Spirit is that's the indomitable spirit of God that permeates through all things. Think of it as the force, but it's the good side, and that's God's spirit. That is him, and it's speaking through us. It's the Spirit of God. And so you have this really, really pushback from people who are 100% stone cold in belief that if they were to take a step outside of what they believe, that they would burn in hell.
Mm-hmm. There's a really good comment here. I want to read.
Put yourself on there when you do it.
It's from Die Guys. He goes, 41 months in Fubaristan, eating and sleeping with the Afghans. There's not any reference to Allah keeping us safe from demons. Yeah. I mean, I see some Arabic ghost videos, and like they'll say prayers during it
Mhm.
as they chase the jinn, they call it, but the activity is happening. It doesn't stop. Like
Yeah.
the activity is constant, and in fact, it's like mocking. And they're saying they just repeat these prayers, but I don't know if they're real or not. But the point is, like, it doesn't really look good if your prayers are like things are being thrown at you as you're praying because
Mhm.
like your prayers just aren't working.
Yeah, I mean, and there's this like strange contradiction in that exists in Islam, where like they kind of almost admit that Christ is the Son of God, but I don't know. It's like they don't realize it. So there's a cognitive dissonance there because they believe that although Muslims believe that Christ was not the Son of God, but rather a prophet, they also believe that he is going to come back, and it will be him who judges the souls of humanity. But they also believe that only God can judge. So I mean, like, so you're basically kind of saying that if only God can judge, and you believe that Christ will be the one who judges, then I mean, put two and two together, do the math. It's just funny to me.
Mhm. Well, I mean, he was speaking about events that happened 400 years before him. I mean, Muhammad.
Hmm.
So it's hard to say exactly like and exactly back then too, like way back then he was talking about years that are 400 years ahead. So,
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's contradictions and stuff, and I think because Muslims believe it's a spoken, or the Quran is a spoken book, that it doesn't get changed, but translations change everything.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Anyone who's a foreigner would know that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So here we go back to the whole thing with this the Bowie thing, Bowie,
Mhm.
Maryland. If you stop and you look at a map, it's like 30 miles southwest or something like that. I think. And then it starts to make sense because so think of the sightings that have happened, and I think that there's a road. Look it up. There's in Bowie, Maryland. You can look it up, and there's like a road or something there. I'm trying to remember the name of the road where people have seen this thing the most. And you're thinking it's 30 miles away, and these people are having this encounter with this entity that looks like, I mean, like a demon, but it's got the resemblance of a goat man, like of the goat man, and then the little girl sees something that looks like a satyr. Now that doesn't really fit into what this other thing was.
Mhm.
Why? I no idea. I just know that if someone is to look at this case and you take it all in, could this is it just I don't believe in coincidences, but if you were to try to argue it, could you say that this is a coincidence that this goat man this just happens to be 30 miles away from where ground zero is, for the goat man?
I don't think you can make a logical argument, really, or a very strong argument that it's just a coincidence.
Mm. Yeah.
Because I mean, like, what kind of distance is that to a spirit? It's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't yeah. So I don't know. I mean, people are having talks about bloodlines here. Somebody says Mothman is out there too. Well, not really heard of it in Maryland. But yeah. Anybody got any questions? Let me know now.
You know, it's funny that you say a lot of goatmen are seen with sticks, because isn't that one of Krampus's things? He beats you with a stick, like
Mhm.
a twig or something.
And he very much looks like an evil Goatman type
Mhm.
creature.
I mean, what if Goatman is more just like an umbrella term for different entities that take a similar form or that along the lines of a goat? So it can be like it can be a satyr, or it can be like an actual like goat-headed humanoid looking thing.
It's funny how much the
Mhm.
goat is used, though. Like even chimeras, one head is usually a goat or a
Mhm.
snake,
Mhm.
and then it's funny how much the goat is used in different things.
Yeah, and when you stop and you look at these cases too, like go back into the like you know that guy with the bestiary. I forgot his name, but anyway, it doesn't matter.
Oh,
But
yeah.
he wrote a book, and it's got the bestiary in there of the Oldry family, supposedly. But you look at there's one creature that looks, he says it's a demon, and then there's another one that looks like a goat, but it's not. It's considered something else. And I can't remember now off the top of my head which one was which and what it was supposed to be. And it just, but one of them was like somebody who had turned into this creature, and then the other one was an actual demon that had been summoned. I believe that's what it was. But they both looked goat-headed, but they were a little bit different. So is one of the forms of the devil, as we think of, is it a goat? Is that what that is? Because we had a story from someone who had one of these things come up to it was like their trailer or something like that. And they were playing with black magic. Somebody was playing with black magic. I just remember that. And this thing was outside, and it was doing what they do, like making the noise like a baby, trying to get them to come outside. And then it would make it sound like there was somebody they knew. And then we told this story on the show. I just can't remember all off the top of my head. I'm very tired right now. But this thing came outside, and they were just like, what the hell is that? Like they saw, like when they went outside to confront whatever it was, they saw this like goat-headed type creature. Now, I had another story that would go along with this. It's just pretty interesting. It's not real long, but this guy claimed that his family, well, wasn't his same, it was his dad, was able to shapeshift. And he was a native. He was a native, and he was Pawnee. And he said that his dad could shapeshift. And one of the things that his dad, like, he wasn't, well, according to this guy, he was like a medicine man, but he wasn't a skinwalker. Like, it was something that he learned to do from somebody who was, and he was kind of like the understudy, but he had not taken that step to, unaliving someone close to you.
Yeah.
And so he said that his dad had actually mastered the art of shapeshifting. And one of the forms that his dad could take was of a goat, like an actual goat.
Oh, just like a regular goat.
Like a goat, yeah. But then there was something else he had said, and he said that he was able to. I got to go back and read it. Like, I didn't talk to the guy. I just read what he sent me. But he was saying that, there was this like sort of in between state where he would look kind of like a goat man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at one point he was going around in that form, and when he ran into the guy that he was a disciple of, which he was in this like sort of, I guess it was something like a coyote. It's kind of the name, the way they describe it is, I don't even want to try to, I'll butcher it all to heck, but it's something between like a wolf and a coyote looking thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they ended up getting into it. Like they got into a fight, and there were people that actually saw it and reported it later on to the tribal elders. And they didn't know who it was. Like they were not sure who it was. But there was, yeah. And so it was in this small community and they were, anyway, I'd have to go back and read it all. And I'm probably not even telling it all correctly. If I can go back and flesh it out, I'll retell it. But there was this sort of battle that happened between them. And then they were kind of like, we dropped an episode called Cryptid Wars, which I think is kind of no offense to you, but how do you title it? It's not your fault, but it's kind of goofy sounding. But I was listening to it, a couple of weeks back, and I was like, because I was looking for a reference because there's a story coming up of someone who had a reptilian on their property that kept causing problems, and then one day this Bigfoot showed up and that thing disappeared. And it was just, but that's like one of those smaller stories I was going to tell. It's not probably take up half an hour or something. So if his story is to be believed, this guy's story about the medicine man, whatever, what is that? Like, if that's real, right? But I've heard of skinwalkers having problems. There's a rivalry there, they'll have problems and they'll each claim a big 100 square mile territory, and then they'll overlap anyway because they're evil. And so they'll do things to one another. One of the stories I got too, and this is interesting. We were talking about the Lakota the other day, and this one came from somebody that told me that they were Lakota, and that there was somebody in their community that could shapeshift, and they would take the form of a wolf, like a wolf type creature, not unlike a werewolf, and that there was a woman that they called the Deer Woman. And this woman, she was like a witch. And so she could shapeshift too. And they actually witnessed this woman, so this wolf-like creature was chasing the deer. Mm-hmm. And when the deer went to jump over the fence, the wolf just stood straight up and like jumped over it like a man, like hopped. And then the deer was turning into the woman and began to crawl up a tree. And this person witnessed this. And then they got behind, because they were driving, they got behind some brush or whatever, and they couldn't see it. And they said, "Stop the car. Look at, you didn't see what we saw." So two of them saw it, the ones that were in the passenger side, the front and back seat. And that it was in their community, like where this happened. And they said that it was, so they didn't know for sure if that was the people that were suspected of being those people. The Deer Woman was like, what they called the Deer Woman was supposedly like a healer. Mm-hmm. And the guy was really just, for all intents and purposes, a warlock. He was evil. So I don't know if it was good guy, bad guy thing, or if it was just two shades of bad, depending on how you look at it and what your cultural aspect is of it. Now, that's the key that people don't understand too. People have to understand how people were raised and their cultural background, their aspect of it. To someone who is raised up believing the rigidity of a King James Bible and does not accept that multiple books have been taken out and that you're missing a bunch of information, and you tell them that, well, all of a sudden you're an apostate because of their cultural upbringing. There's that aspect of it. Whereas somebody else who's more open-minded is going to be like, well, you're right. If you study history and the truth, you're going to, obviously, if you can do math, I mean, the Ethiopians have 88 books or something, or 81 books, something like that. And so then they go back and they see how many books of the Bible have been changed, altered, taken out, whatever. Now, what I disagree with on the Muslims is very simple. They believe that their book has never changed. Okay. I'm going to say right now, a book that has been around since 600, in the 600s, and you're going to tell me it's never changed, right? Never changed, brother. Never. And they'll tell you, well, you know why this is the truth? Because this is the word of God. Says who? The people that wrote it. Because God told them to write it. By that logic, I could write down on a piece of paper right now and say, this is the absolute word of God. Everybody's give me $1 million, okay, and do everything I say. But this is the word of God, right? And you could write that down, and because you believe that because I said it was, you're believing that that's the word of God. And then I could say this has never been changed. Never. It will never, because no one can change the word of God, but you're still reading the words that were written by a man. Right? I mean, it started out by somebody saying that they had they talked to the angel Jabril, which is Gabriel.
Mm-hmm.
And Jabril told them, this is the truth. Right? Absolutely. But you're still taking the word of a man who's claiming that this is, and then you're also trusting in these scholars to tell his words correctly. How does that's a lot of trusting and believing, dude. And I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So all it takes is for one of them to be dishonest, and you got this infallible word, and it's this. So that's my issue there. Like, how about I just write up some stuff, and then I say that, an angel told me this, and I could just skip the middleman who just told me. I could just say it happened to me, and I could write it down.
That's just Scientology.
And get us sued. Freaking goofy ball over there be like, I'm gonna turn him into the Scientologist now. That's gonna take him down now. Yeah, well, I'm gonna tell you right now, it doesn't really matter. The bottom line is, you're taking everything on faith, regardless whether it's the Bible or the Quran. But I can say this: the proof is in the pudding. Whether the Bible has been altered or not really is irrelevant, because we know that the name of Christ works. I mean, you could make the argument like, well, if it doesn't work, but it does. It does. It's got a lot of grit in it. So Oshio Benny says they have actually found different versions of the Quran. They don't differ much, but they do differ. Well, the thing is, too, every time they translate it to another language, because Arabic is it doesn't translate to English well. It doesn't translate
to English well.
Huh?
Nothing really translates to English well.
Well, it doesn't translate to Chinese. I mean, Mandarin. It doesn't.
And China has had one of the biggest Muslim populations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then you can't. It's so vastly different when you read it in different languages. That's why they tell you have to learn it in Arabic, and it's like a sing-song thing. But some of the Hebrew Bible is that way too. But it's still they say it's the infallible word of God, but it's still just based on people. So you're basically having to put faith in man that they're not going to alter or change anything. That is the key right there. I mean, so you're putting a lot of faith in people. I don't have a problem with faith in God. My problem is faith in mankind. I don't trust that with that kind of power, they're not, they're going to wield it. Believe me. And so, I told these people, I said, look, I'm a Christian, but I don't go to church in the way that a lot of people do. And I don't, because I think it's been compromised. This is just me. You don't have to do what you want, man. It's your life. I'm not living it. You. But I don't adhere to modern religion so much as I just follow Christ and the teachings of Christ. And I do think that's the way. That's my opinion. Hopefully these people will get far get her on the right track, whatever. But so if the stories are to be believed, the Patapsco Valley State Park, which is 30 miles from, or a little less than 30 miles from there, there have been numerous sightings in that area and going down to Bowie, Maryland, and where they live is not far from there. So then that would speak to this thing being some sort of metaphysical creature,
Yep.
obviously, but it exists in that region. The key to this, to unraveling this, I think, lies in whatever that cleric was doing, or I guess his understudy, whatever. What was he doing? The rat face guy. What was he doing going room to room? What was he doing in their rooms? I mean, what was he, or was he just a snoopy little guy and he jumbled up some of that stuff that was in the box? Now, here's another clue. Here's another piece of the puzzle. The son, right? He made reference to his ex-girlfriend having practiced in the occult, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I asked the mother what she knew, and she said that at one point her son had come home and was breaking up with her. He was plagued. He told her all this stuff and said, well, I'm going to go to bed. Then he had a night terror, which he didn't remember. Then he had another one, which he didn't remember. And eventually he did remember those dreams, right? He didn't remember for a long time. And get this, when we started talking about it, he told me where he was when he would have these dreams. And I knew exactly where he was at when he started talking about it. And it was a place where it's always dark. Yeah. And he said that at one time he had gone with some friends to that state park and they were going to go hang out or whatever, camp or whatever it was they were doing. And they got, set up and they were barbecuing and doing whatever they were doing. And they were drinking beer and he was underage. He wasn't supposed to be drinking, but he had to answer the call, of nature, whatever.
Yeah.
And he goes out into the whatever, and then he passes out. And his friend, he wakes up and they're in the vehicle and they're driving him to the hospital because he's unconscious. They can't wake him up. And he claims he had no memory of it. And then he did. And when he went, now what happened to him that day, he went to use the restroom. Something hit him like a wave, like something, and it came through his back and out of his chest. And then he started dreaming again. And it was that place, that dark place where he would go. I'm going to get into it with him more because I think he was in the city of night.
Yep.
And so he had no memory of this. And this was just, but it happened at the state park. And so you start to wonder, like, what kind of power these things have and what they have to do with the dark side and evil. I think they have a lot to do with it. I do. I think they do. I think these are basically a type of demon. Now, people can say, well, they were the Nephilim. This is what, yeah, but when they died, doesn't it say that they became evil spirits? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they were pumping these things out, making them for whatever reason, wouldn't this stand a reason that this would be, you would ask the question, why would, if that was it was a scientific thing, because I think all magic is really scientific, why would they choose that particular form? What would be the benefits of a goat?
I mean, like, that's what I've been racking my brain trying to answer. But, like, not just the goat, but, like, why choose any specific form?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why choose one specific form over another?
Yeah.
And is there a three-dimensional physical reason for it, or is there like some symbolic reason for it, where the abilities they have while they're in this world are different based on what form they take? I don't know.
There's a couple different things I like to think of. Is being in your spirit, or are they in their natural forms, not really an entity, but more like just the best way I could describe it is like Dark Side from these comics.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he has an avatar and he has a figure, what he looks like, that's just in this universe. In his actual form, in another universe, he is the universe. So like his whole power is in the universe, and when he just looks like that. So like that's kind of what I imagine. Like it's easier to focus on the form so that you kind of maintain yourself, because you're not really in something. You're just kind of like uh an entity that expands that. So when you're trying to form in the physical world, you have to have like something to focus on.
Mhm.
So it's easier to choose something that already exists, so that you have it's not like something you have to imagine. But
I can tell you what I think.
but
Goats are very intelligent. They're hyper intelligent. In fact, they're smarter than dogs. We had some when I was a child, when I was real little. And now my cousins have some out there where we're at. But dude, goats can solve complex problems, and they can learn. They learn very quickly, and they adapt very quickly. And they have shown in studies that they've done that they have complex problem-solving skills. It's true, and they have a very strong memory, and they can be taught to accomplish tasks. In fact, if you could get them on board with you, they can be very valuable assets. Now imagine something created these things back in the gap, right? And they choose an animal that would go very well with the human, whatever. So why not the goat? I mean, they also live in very advanced social settings. Like they have a very strict hierarchy, and they're very pack-like animals, but they're not like sheep. They're not stupid. Sheep are kind of a little bit dense. Goats aren't. Goats are highly intelligent, and they're escape artists. And so if you were to make an advanced race of beings that was not human and had like ability, you might choose an animal like that. Also, they're very hardy animals, and they can survive through harsh climates. They can survive with little food, and their stomachs are strong, and they can digest things that normally we wouldn't be able to handle. So you have reasons why this could have been an animal that was chosen for this chimeric, high.
So they're intelligent and resilient.
I was gonna say, I saw someone said it, but they're also sacrificial animals, like cows, bulls, goats, lambs. Brittany, she said it, and it might have something to do with it.
Yeah, I mean, and you start to see they're also very intelligent in another way too. They can sense your emotion. Now think about that. That's important, because a goat can tell whether or not you're being a good guy or a bad guy, depending on how you're talking to them. They're not stupid. They recognize that through voice patterns and things like that. Now that's interesting, because you hear about the goat man mimicking people and trying to be like a human.
Yeah.
So you got that, and then they can also tell, like, if you're a person, if you're in a good mood or a bad mood. They can tell you happy or sad. Harsh environments, not a problem. They can adapt to it. Like I said, there's a lot of different reasons, man. And then when you're sitting there thinking about an animal that's that intelligent, you start to think this could become kind of scary, because this thing could actually be very, very, very powerful if it was interbred with a human, with human-like intelligence. Why do you think you see them running around with tools and you don't see that with a Dogman? We've heard a little bit about Dogman having something, but not really. They don't tend to carry.
I just don't think it's necessary for Dogman. Like, what tool is going to rival your own claws and power? And it's not like guns are that useful against you, so what use is using them?
And it seems like the Goatmen are more suited for like that like more deceptive psychological spiritual warfare or like psychological like manipulation, whereas like with the werewolf and the Dogman encounters, they're more like kind of straightforward, just like full on aggression.
Yeah,
But
Dogman.
then you hear about Goatman and then like them mimicking like someone that you know and care about to like deceptively lure you to that. It's that they seem like
They
like
seem
just more
like-
clever and more sadistic.
Yeah, they seem like more like tricksters, like con men, and
Mhm.
like Dogman and Bigfoot sound more like enforcers.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and it's interesting because if you stop and you go back and you look at some of these stories that we've gotten, they do things that are very sinister. They're very tricky.
Mhm.
Yeah, like getting people to come outside and do things. So, and using weapons, tools. Goats have even been observed, like goats themselves have been observed, like learning how to open containers to get to their snacks and things like that. They use them as companions to like horses,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and there have been cases of goats helping blind horses and dogs and other types of animal, donkeys, you know, they couldn't see or whatever or hear, and they will like be a guide for them. Very intelligent people. They have a reputation for being stupid. They're not stupid. They are not stupid.
No, they're called
Stubborn.
hard-headed, but they're not.
They're
stupid.
stubborn at times, but that is also people say to their detriment. No, not really, because the first thing that they're going to try and do is escape and get away from you,
Mm-hmm.
because you're probably going to eat them.
Yeah.
And I think that goats sense that, you know, and it's got to be horrific for them because they're so much more intelligent than cattle,
Yeah.
you know. So you thinking that this thing's probably going like, oh my gosh, and they also kind of sound human. If you hear them like babbling and stuff, you know, you're kind of going like, what is that? Like that sounds kind of odd, you know. You're just like,
Yeah.
it's kind of freaky, dude. You know, you're just like, what? It's like they're talking, you
Yeah.
know. But Truffles will do that. He'll sound like he's complaining, and you're like, Truffles, I don't know what you're saying. I know you're mad because Beanie
get the
took
feeling,
one of your
but-
toys, but he would get so mad when he was trying to play with that ball with the feeder,
Yeah.
and Beanie would go knock it. He gets so mad, and he goes running up to you and complains. I mean, that's what he's doing. He's complaining to you that he's mad that she
Yeah.
took, and then he runs back over to it and runs back. At least he does to me. He'll run back to me. He wants her to be punished, you know, for doing whatever it is. And she's a little brat. And Bean's so like, you know, but she's pretty clever too. But you know, you got goats are interesting. They're a very interesting animal, and you have this creature that has these abilities. Then you mix it up with a human. I guarantee you, it's going to be smarter than a Dogman. But in terms of matching the ferocity of it, now if this is a physical,
One is a
thing,
predator, one is still a prey.
yeah, one's a
animal.
prey, but the prey is also not. I don't think it's a wilting willow because
Yeah.
it's a predator too. In the way that this thing,
What it's become now.
yeah,
is
what
a
has
predator.
become with the human, because the human in it is gonna want meat. It's gonna want to, you know, it's got that human proclivity. And so I think that this is what we're dealing with. I don't think that this is a safe creature in any shape or form. And I think there's different kinds. I think there's ones that live within the earth, and I think there's disembodied beings that are roaming around. Now, here's the question. Are these things, could they be something that I'm trying to cover the basis here, but what if it dies? Right? Say it's a long-lived, subnatured creature that passes away. Where does the spirit go? Right? What if it just roams around and it tries to possess or whatever another person or something?
Mm-hmm.
Or it takes up residence somewhere, like someone's house. Or if it can be summoned.
It's like it's gonna try and get energy any way it can.
Yeah. Somebody told me the other day and we were going back and forth. They were giving me their stories, and they argued vehemently that people could not become demons. I say this. I say, yes, they can. Because you really just become the vessel for a parasitic entity that takes you over. And eventually it can cause the body to just be something that completely, it's just the body just becomes a home
Yeah.
for
like a
another
husk.
entity. You're not even there anymore. But yeah, they become demons and they can warp your body. Now, if a human can learn to shapeshift, the demons way ahead of you. So that's the thing, you know. So, anyways, I hope that this was insightful. I hope that you guys, you know, and these people need to be they need to change. I mean, that's all I can say, you know. Thank goodness that most of the family already has done the change, you know, to be better, you know. But you know, the mother and one of the other family members who's not even from the Middle East, they choose to be, you know, but they don't, like I think you said earlier, they believe that Christ is going to return and he's going to be the guy, but they still just look at him as a great prophet.
Yeah. It's the logic doesn't really fit, in my opinion.
The math ain't mathin'.
Yeah. Sailor Nemesis says, where can I see the picture of the beast beneath the Vatican? Let me see if I got one.
Yeah, I think you should have it somewhere.
There's one beast right there. Look at that guy. That's a sexy beast right there. I don't know, man. I'm joking. Here's one. No, this one looks like. You see that? Can y'all see that? That's one, but that one is supposedly not necessarily a Goatman. It's a type of. There was another one too. This one here is supposedly like one of the vampires that they call the elders, or not elders, the whatever, what the original race of the vampire looked like. And then they became more and more human looking, but that supposedly is one of the original vampires. I forgot the name that they call it. And then this dude right here supposedly is a vampire too, but he's like a human level vampire. And they put this thing around his neck to keep him from being able to have any power. This is not a Goatman, but it's a type of demon that was summoned. And then this is the Minotaur, the Bullman. But there's a lot of different ones. I mean, these are supposedly pictures from the Vatican. And then that one there is supposedly a vampire too. Because as they get older, they become more malformed and more weird looking. And I think that's all the pictures. Well, there's a few others, but I mean, they have nothing to do with this. Why? And somebody asked the question, why was the goat chosen as the symbol of Satan? Because of Pan. He was a symbol of the nature spirit, and it was not looked kindly upon, as it was, what do you call it? Paganism.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, you know, and we were talking the other night on the show about Peter Pan. We were talking about, and we told you, you know, go back and listen to the Monday show, the day before yesterday. Would have been the last show we did, and it was, yeah, Pan. you know. But I think that particular being isn't just one. There's not just one being that looks like that. And I don't know. Give me your opinions. Give me your thoughts before we bail here. If your name is not in green, get it in green so you can win the giveaway. Let's, well, we got a minute here.
Oh, yeah.
This right here is going to become the new mascot. Let me see one of yours. Oh, y'all can just show yours. Let's show yours. That one glows in the dark, right?
No, it's just green.
I thought it did.
Too.
Mm-mm. I mean, yours is cooler. Pretty cool.
This
It's
is called
Scarewolf.
Scarewolf. You can see the Scarewolf. Bless you.
Bless you.
There. And this is the orange. It's kind of like the PRT orange that we have, and I have a black one too. They are created by Angela Pleggy, and we're going to mass produce these, and we're going to make these available for purchase. And let's see one of yours that's open. See, and you can move his waist. And so Scarewolf will sort of become the mascot for PRT. So you can order one of these sculptures. It was sculpted and created by Angela Pleggy, and it was, let me see the green one. No, this one's green. And there's other colors too. This one, it looks really light. It doesn't look that way in person. Like on the camera, it looks
bright.
Yeah, it looks really different. You sure he didn't glow in the dark?
I'm pretty sure.
Thought he did. But anyways, this is what they look like here. And it just has a different tone to it. This is the one still in the packaging. Okay. And this is what we're going to try and do. We're going to try and get a bunch of these, and we're going to do some for the giveaway, and then the others are going to be sold. We're going to sell them. And you can order them directly from us if you want to place an order for one. But this is it. Pretty cool. We wanted an action figure, and we were just like, what are we going to do? And we had some diphead that was supposed to do it, and then the next thing you know, he's making figures for everybody in the entire world. And it was like, what's the point now if you're going to do that, if you're making action figures of everybody? And then everybody was using them as their profile pic, but if things would have been the way they were supposed to be, it would have been we would have mass produced everything, and we would have had cryptid figures. So these guys, pretty cool. Which one's green? Is that yours?
Yeah.
And then Tony, yours is blue. And then I have a black one at the house too. So, yeah. And then she says she didn't use digital. Now that brings us to the song that we're going to release on Friday, which is the first song of the new album that we're making. And so this one, though, is different. The first 11 songs we did, they were not AI. They were actually sung by a regular person, and the lyrics are all Nelly's. Now, this one's going to be a little bit different. The lyrics written by Nelly, still all written by Nelly, but the music will be AI. Because it's just so easier to do. But it's not as easy as you think. It really isn't, because you have to get the right tone. And for that song, Anthony and Nelly had to work together to try to get the right, to hit the, you can't just type in, make me a song, it's very hard.
Yeah, you got to give it like some kind of specific musical terms.
Reminds me of
if you want to get what you want out of it.
Some show where they were just like, make music. They were just hoping something.
Yeah. So anybody got any questions before we go? Anybody else? We're going to bail.
You have to ask Nelly that, John.
I have no idea, John. I don't even know. Can we hear snippets? Do we have any of it?
I'd have to download it. I haven't downloaded it on the
Yeah, we
computer
didn't have
yet.
time to, so that's why we didn't do it. But Alan says, any glow in the dark scare wolves? Yes, there are. They're going to
Oh,
be
the stickers.
yeah, and then there's stickers too. But there's going to be a glow in the dark scare wolf, and then there's going to be like these. They're going to be different kinds and different colors. We're gonna make them in different colors and different kinds. Somebody's asking, what's the difference between Dogman and werewolves? Well, the werewolf is a shapeshifter, and the Dogman supposedly is not. We don't know one way or the other, but there is a race of beings that look like dog-headed type creatures that live within the earth. I'm convinced of this, and I'm going to tell you this. I don't know if they're shapeshifters themselves or what they are exactly, but I would hazard to guess they're probably, like their own entities or their own whatever species. But where did they originate from? Something created these things, and felt the need to do it. I think that, like I said, there were advantages to taking a human and making them part something else. Or taking one of these creatures and giving you human characteristics to add to their repertoire. And then they used them Thank you for the compliment, Head Trev. Appreciate it. Not necessarily. A lot of people, what they're calling a dogman is very wolf-like. And those creatures that are not shapeshifters, they do still look like wolves. But there are a few people who've reported seeing something that looks kind of like a dog. Bettina Moss comes to mind because she's the most well-known, people that have given us stories about the dog-looking one. But yeah, they're very weird. Says, can we get more exact location for the Goatman story? Patapsco State Park is big. Yeah, no, I don't have an exact location. And also, not to be snarky, this isn't me being rude or anything, Paul, but we were talking about becoming more vague.
Yeah.
Because we had, well, y'all can tell them if you want to.
Well, people can still figure it out. There have been a couple of instances where very little detail was given about the exact location of something that happened, and those witnesses ended up having people on their property looking for them and found them from the show.
Yeah.
So
they were pretty.
It puts a strain on the relationship.
Put bad taste in their mouth.
Yeah. And it became a source of contention. I'm not even going to say who it was. One most recently, a couple of months back, and they messaged me pretty aggravated that somebody had figured out who they were, and I should have been more vague. And they, some people are fine with it. They're willing to, but that even makes me nervous because if something were to happen, they would still be, it's just, I don't know. I just prefer not have any connection to, because people really just, they want to go and trespass on people's properties. And I get it. I'm not trying to facilitate that. But people do, and I'm not even gonna lie, I've been places I'm like, man, I guess I should just go walk around.
Yeah, we see a purple post and we're like,
well, that purple post will make me stop real quick. I'm like, I'm not willing to become,
But we go right up to it.
We'll right up to it to look at it, but I'm not gonna.
We won't pass it.
But that's, y'all have seen me walking around.
Yeah.
We've done shows.
It's like when you're a kid and you're like, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you.
Yeah.
Just like go right up to that boundary.
Yeah. Well, the other day we were confronted with purple posts.
Yeah.
We were out there
near that bridge.
Yeah, by the bridge. And Nelly and everybody went. And I said, "Oh, well, let's not go
Because we were gonna go down it, let's check it out,
couldn't.
but
Purple Posts were there." So if somebody's there on the property, they're basically telling you that if you cross that line, they're going to shoot you or kill you, unalive, whatever you want to call it.
it's enough warning. What they're saying.
Yeah, and that's enough for me. I'm good. You know, I'm not gonna do it. So you got to be real careful, and I don't want people thinking, you know, it's just okay because Wolf talked about it on the show. Let me just go ahead and violate this, and I don't want to be blamed for it, especially if somebody gets hurt. That's not what I want. So that's it for tonight, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you to those who donated. Let's do a giveaway here. Now you may just get a book until we get our shirt shipments in. We got to figure out what we're going to do about that. But if your name is in green, tell me you want to win. Let's just do that. Tell me, hey, I want to win something. Nobody wants to win. They're just like, yeah. Everybody, we hate you. We hate your show. We hate everything. We have 465 people. Y'all got any hoodies left? John says. We do some.
We found some more. We
found more hoodies?
We didn't bring the bin though.
Oh wow. Right. You found one?
Yeah.
Yeah, we found some in there. We'll have to check the sizes to see exactly what they are.
Okay, so Miss Outspoken says, I'll just say I haven't won in over a year.
Okay. Is there anybody that's not won at all? I'm giving you 5 seconds here. Guess not. Blackbeard of Backbeard Dave. Backbeard.
Oh, Shellback. There you go. Bros, I have not.
Shellback says that they haven't won. Okay, so Miss Outspoken, what did you win over a year ago? What was it that you won? So we don't give you the same thing, because this is just for a book. And if you're a Patreon member, your stuff was I think it's up to date now, right?
Yeah.
We shipped off the Patreon people whose stuff was owed to them. We shipped it off a couple days ago.
She got a zip-up hoodie.
So you guys will be okay. So she got a zip-up hoodie. We got the good one. What are you doing? Why are you complaining? Why are you trying to get more stuff? What's wrong with
Why are you telling people that? That was supposed to be just for you.
I'm messing with you. She says a zip-up hoodie. So we'll send you a book. That's all we got right now. That's unless you're a size what, medium or large?
Yeah.
No. Or do we have 4X?
I'm pretty sure we have 4X.
Okay. So we got medium, large, and 4X. If you're not those, then you're probably just going to get a book. So this is just what we got right now. We're just going to have to make the best of it. We have some hats, all right.
Yeah.
We got
hats.
But anyways, folks, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. A lot to ponder, a lot to think about. And this is what we do at PRT. You know, we give people some food for thought, at least. Madeline says, what did she say? I left the notebook with the inventory on shirts at the studio. Okay.
Well, we don't know where that's
I
at.
don't know why you would type that on there, but you could have texted us that, you know, and you know.
Who told us what it was?
She wants y'all to know she's working hard. She needs to be compensated. All right. So anyways, yeah, thanks for a great show. Rudy says, I appreciate it. You guys liked it. Miss Outspoken says she could do a 4X. Okay. So it'll be super baggy, but a lot of people like them that way. Tony Mendez says, I won February 20th and didn't get a hat, black. Is that true? Tony didn't get a hat?
Let me turn the banner on.
So you need to send your information to giveaways@prtpodcast.com. If you send your information to prtpodcast.com, we'll get it to you. Okay.
Yeah, the email address is scrolling at the bottom of the screen. If you're a giveaway winner, send an email to there with your name and shipping information and what you want.
So that's pretty much it, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us here at PRT. A lot of stuff in the works, man. We got a lot of stuff going on. We're gonna try and get an episode out for tomorrow night, but we don't know because we don't know if we'll have time to do it. Like it's time is like we're editing it, okay? Because we didn't have one on Tuesday, which is the podcast episode. And that's mostly just we don't have a lot of time right now. And there are people, like I said, they only listen to the podcast. That's it. They just refuse to go to YouTube, and they're missing a ton of content. And then they'll complain in the group. They're the ones that are always complaining.
Mm-hmm.
There's no episode this week. There's been 4. You just didn't hear them because you're like on YouTube, and they're like, never mind.
Blech. Ew.
Yeah. Ooh, brother. Ooh. Hey, YouTube. Why you go to the tube of you?
It is haram, brother. You must not.
Somebody says, I loved seeing you and Paul Wallace talking together. Great show. That was on Jason Bland's show, Paranormal Soup.
Mm-hmm.
And I got there just for the last hour. But Paul will be a guest again on our show eventually. I just got to get him scheduled. We've talked, and he's been on the show before we did the podcast episode again, but we didn't get him on the live. I think he's been on the live ones too, and the podcast. But anyways, thank you to everybody who tuned in. Thank you to everybody who's donated, and congratulations to the winners. Send your information down there, giveaways at prtpodcast.com. Yes, Angela, tell them, hit the like button. Thank you, guys. And what's up, Rich Sykes? Member for 12 months, man. Good job.
You're a real one, Rich.
And he's a Patreon member, too. Guys, be sure and join the Patreon. It's a great way to support the show and help us out. And you get a lot of cool stuff for it, right? Mm-hmm. All right, guys. We'll see you. Good night.